Once upon a time. Welcome to Australian Book Lovers, your destination for imagination.
A big warm welcome to everyone and a huge thank you for joining us for the Australian Book Lovers podcast, episode 66. Our mission is to bring fabulous Australian and Indigenous literature that spans a whole range of genres to book lovers around the globe, as well as fantastic resources and information for passionate authors looking to write their next bestseller. I'm Veronica Strachan, aka V.E. Patton, fantasy, memoir and picture book writer, reader, and your co-founder and host, coming to you from Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country today.
And I am Darren Kazenko, dystopian science fiction and horror author, avid reader, and one of your co-hosts and co-founders of the Australian Book Lovers, coming to you today from, a less than spectacular second day of spring in Ghana country. But of course it is spring, which means things will get better very soon. Episode 66 too.
Indeed, 66, and it's just a fantastic number. I love double numbers. They make me feel good. And I can say to you that the bingo call for 66 is clickety click.
Oh, clickety click. I know, I've heard of clickety clack. I don't know, clickety click, clickety clack. Actually, clickety click is probably the difference between a $19.95 keyboard and a $129 keyboard. Because
true.
Because I think it's the mechanical keyboards, which I love much better.
Yeah.
Because they've got the they're not like those soft, elegant ones like, that sort of originated, I think, on the Mac, with the little soft, mushy keys. They're the big old clickety-clack keys. So it's a very
I do like a bit of a clickety-clack one, I must admit, because it does get a bit of a pounding between, writing and the work I do when I'm not doing writing is still a lot of writing. So, it does get a fair pounding, and I do wear them out. And so you could even work out which are my favourite keys by the ones that are slightly rubbed off. So yes, I would be good in those movies where they do the infrared or they do sticky tape on the keys and get people's fingerprints. So I work out what the entry code is. Yeah, mine would be dead easy, just the same over and over again. But there you go.
If I was looking to improve my diet or do some scientific work on my nutrition, I'm flat out busy, so I could just send any nutritionist specialist, just send them my keyboard. They can have a quick look in between the keys and let them know everything I eat. But if anybody, Christmas is around the corner, so if anyone wants to play Secret Santa, and you don't know where I live, but but if you're maybe friends with Santa knows where I live. A super groovy mechanical keyboard, which I've seen lately with all the funky LED lights underneath.
Yes.
That'll be me.
Gaming keyboards. So I know 2, possibly even 3 of my children have those gaming keyboards. And I say children, but they're adults, so they can afford to buy them themselves. I certainly didn't buy them for them, but they do look pretty impressive. And apparently you can make them change lights all the time. And
absolutely.
Yeah, it's very fancy.
I mean, all this time, experience and work to train myself to not have to look at my keyboard while I'm typing. If I got one of those, I'd be staring at my fingers all day and night going, oh, look at that, it's purple, electric green, yay. Yeah, anyway, episode 66.
66.
Did you want to know a little bit about the number 66?
I do. Tell me about 66. Why does it make me feel so good?
Well, that's funny enough that it does make you feel good because it is the number of balance and harmony. And supposedly the number 66 symbolises peace, love and understanding, and it's all about unity and coming together as one. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah.
So as opposed to the number 666, which is some people say an angel number, but in fact has become sort of widely recognised as the devil's number, so a bit apocalyptic. But then it goes 66, so I like that one. Tell me what happened in Australia in 1966, Darren.
Certainly. Funny that you should bring up 666 to start as a preamp to this, because the very first thing is probably, it's infamous, but it's not very nice. And so and it's actually local here to South Australia, but in 1966, the Beaumont children were abducted during a visit to Glenelg Beach here, just outside of Adelaide. And
Yep.
of course, they were never seen again, and remains a mystery to this day. And the reason, I guess, what's so infamous for people that aren't aware of that particular incident is that there's a lot of speculation involved that the people, or at least one or two of the people involved with that particular case, went on to commit a whole bunch of other horrific murders, and possibly with connections through to what they consider to be a powerful family. So whether it be through the courts or through the police or whatever it might be, politicians. There was this theory that there's perhaps an underground network of very nasty people here in Adelaide. Well, it's never been proven, but that's a rabbit hole for people to go in. That's the Beaumont children, but. On the 14th of February in 1966, we talked a little bit about it in the last episode, but it was the official decimalisation. I read it as decriminalisation of the Australian currency. Yes, it was finally brought out of the black market. No, the decimalisation of the Australian currency. So the Australian dollar replaced the Australian pound at the rate of 10 shillings to the dollar. So there we go, the shillings got turned metric. The first national service, conscripts flew out from the Richmond RAF base in Sydney, bound for Vietnam. So not a good part of 1966. Now, interesting one though. New South Wales repeals the Sunday Observance Act, and which then allowed theatres and cinemas to finally open, sporting events to charge admission, and clubs to sell alcohol on Sundays. So,
there you go.
Into the future, New South Wales in 1966. But here's one where it shows that the more things change, the more they stay the same, or at least back in time they say the same until they stay the same. In 1966, the Queensland government granted sand mining leases on Fraser Island without actually holding the required public hearings. Well, there we go. Here's one for your
Fraser
local...
Island is now, its traditional name has been restored. Can you remember what it is?
I couldn't tell you, no. I know that we did talk about that, didn't we?
We did.
Quite a few episodes ago.
Yeah, here we go. So Kagari.
Ah.
There you go.
Well, I wonder if the sand's been restored. But
yeah,
I don't know where they... Well, there's probably a lot of Gold Coast beaches that enjoyed some of that sand, I suspect. But I haven't... Saying that, I have no idea. But yes, without holding the required public hearings, hopefully that's changed since then. I'm not going to hazard a guess. In Victoria, did you know in 1966, Victoria extended hotel trading hours from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., which ended the infamous 6 o'clock swill.
Yes. Last drinks, gentlemen. Yes, indeed.
And I suppose the speakeasy disappeared after that too. But but this is a little bit... I'm not sure if this fact's true. I tried to look it up a little bit further. But it says here, driving with blood alcohol level of over 0.05 becomes a criminal offence. But I was under the impression it was 0.08 for a very long time.
Right. No.
Or has it been different in Victoria?
I couldn't tell you there.
Because I know in South Australia, as a teenager, it was 0.08, and then eventually it got reduced to 0.05. So that's interesting. But
maybe it was only South Australia.
Maybe we allowed more, a few more beers before to be able to drive home before for a while. So a man that probably should stand tall for all of Australians, conscientious objector William White. He was actually forcibly taken from his home in Sydney and was forcibly inducted into the army. What a horrible situation that is. Imagine saying that I don't want to go and kill anybody for political, politicians who, as we just saw a couple of moments ago, that don't even worry about following their own rules when it comes to doing things. But yes, and then forcibly taken and inducted into the army. Not a good thing. But to end on a really cool note, though, guess what first aired on the 18th of July in 1966?
No, what?
Play School.
Oh, Play School. There you go.
Yes. So there we go. A little bit of a snapshot of Australia in 1966. And you mentioned the number 666. It's going to be a while before we get to that episode. But now, I don't know if it's true or not, but I do know that it is true partly. And that is the barcodes. When you look at any of the barcodes on any product, you'll notice that there's 3 long bars and then, of course, and then 2 segments of short bars. All those short bars have a number. The 3 long ones don't.
Ooh.
Conspiracy? coincidence. It is said that those three long bars are the number 6 in the system when you scan.
Right.
I don't think that's true, but at the same time, it's a little bit creepy that, the old there'll be no buying or selling or trading without the mark of the beast. And here we have a universal barcode that has 3 long horns, almost, you could say. The only ones that don't have a number. But I digress. So there we go. Shall we jump into some news for episode 66?
Well, we absolutely could jump into some news. Or I could tell you. Now, I think I tend to talk about the meanings and origins of Australian words.
Oh, yes, let's do that.
But of course, they're not really new. So let's just say thank you to the Australian National University again, because we're up to K. We're going, we're winding down to A. And K for kangaroo. Now, I know you've heard of kangaroo, but any of the larger marsupials of the chiefly Australian family Macropodidae with short forelimbs, a tail developed for support and balance, long feet and powerful hind limbs, enabling a swift bounding motion are, of course, kangaroos. Perhaps the most well-known Australian English word, kangaroo, comes from the Guju Yamathira Aboriginal language of far north Queensland. And, there's a whole lot more articles that you can see it. But there you go. So it is originally a far north Queenslander word, kangaroo.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I was thinking, do furries now fall under the category?
What's that?
I was just thinking, under that description, does that mean furries now fall under the category of kangaroo?
Furries?
The people that want to be animals and they're dressed in that onesie suits.
Oh.
Oh, that's sort of serious.
I have no idea where you get this stuff from.
There's some
Honestly,
serious-
no, I haven't heard of that.
I'll leave it up to your discretion if you want to type
I'll
in
do some
furries on
Googling
Google.
myself.
Well,
All right, I'm
there
gonna
ended the Australian Book Lovers podcast.
I'm going to give you another word, and I'm sure that you're not going to know where this comes from. Kylie.
Oh, it's in the name, Kylie.
Yeah. So most people associate the term Kylie, K-Y-L-I-E, with the female personal name, as in Kylie Minogue. In Western Australia, however, it is a term for what is known elsewhere as a boomerang.
Oh,
the
wow.
word came into Australian English from Noongar, an Aboriginal language spoken over a large extent of southwestern WA, including present-day Perth, Albany and Esperance, and the word also occurs in other Western and Central Australian languages. So there you go. While early writers used various spelling, such as K-I-L-E-Y, in the 20th century, the spelling Kylie is standard. And, of course, that female personal name, Kylie, may be based on that word. So, in fact, there you go.
That's interesting because, all through school or basically all through my life, whenever I've read anything to do with the boomerang, I've never seen it referenced as, or an alternate reference as Kylie.
Yep, there you go. So, in fact, the word first appeared in English in G.F. Moore's Diary of 10 Years Eventful Life of an Early Settler in Western Australia. There's a nice short title for you, which is published in 1884, but referring to an 1835 diary entry that says, "I'm sorry that nasty word boomerang has been suffered to supersede the proper name. Boomerang is a corruption used at Sydney by the white people, but not the native word, which is turama. But Kylie is the name here." So there you go.
So it's almost like a local dialect. In the sense of,
and it sounds as though the colonisers corrupted one of the local names on the eastern seaboard, some of the mobs over here anyway. So there you go. Okay, bring on the news.
Oh, yes. Let's go.
Okay, I have some news, and I thought it would be, we don't always share the winners, but I thought it would be interesting to just give our listeners some of the responses to our giveaway prizes. As you know, if you are a newsletter subscriber, whiz over to the website, australianbooklovers.com/booklovers, and sign up. You can be eligible for a free book giveaway because many of our authors and some of the publicists for some of our traditionally published authors offer a free book for our listeners. And we've had free audio books, I think, from Dr. Chris Timms. He
yes.
gave us a Lit RPG, audio book as well. So anyway, the last newsletter, we had A Remarkable Woman by Jules Van Mills, and we had The Brink by Holden Sheppard, also from WA. So the winner, and I won't mention names because, when there's a lot, I usually put them in a spinner, one of those spinners, and just pick a random one. But anyway, the winner said that she loved historical fiction around World War II, particularly women living their lives whilst doing extraordinary things. And that was kind of perfect for the book.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yeah, lots of people like the Victorian period, up to the 1850s. One person mentioned near enough in time to appreciate and far enough to be so very different to her life. So that was good. 1800s, Roaring 20s, the onset of the Great Depression, the renewed hope that people learned. So it's really interesting that the historical fiction people love their history. They really do. And it's, fantastic. This another person talks about the Jazz Age blossoming, women finding freedom as their look was defined by the flapper, and it reminded me beautifully of my Nana's wedding album, which they've got these just gorgeous, just past the knee dresses and the huge long veils and enormous bunches of flowers and little satin slippers. She was a flapper, but there you go. So that's some of the responses to the Remarkable Woman giveaway. And the question was, what's your favourite time period for all you historical fiction readers? And for The Brink, I really love this winning entry is, I love young adult contemporary stories as I get to be the cool adult who knows what's in and on trend. In brackets, I always read them before gifting the book on to a young person, close brackets. Hey, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now, interestingly, and I won't mention this lady's name, but she has actually won 3 books from us. So she gets in there and responds to stuff. She doesn't win every time she enters, because I think she does enter almost every time, but she's done very well, and she's in regional Victoria. So lots of great books going that way. So there was some very interesting responses to our giveaways. So that was a little bit of news. And the other news that I wanted to mention is that there is just September events, basically, for lots of people. We have the Melbourne Writers' Fest is heading on. Bad Crime Sydney is taking place, as is Right Around the Murray. So have a look out for that. And the Northern Beaches Readers Festival is going on as well. And if you want a really good spot for looking at what's on, there's a group called Literary Listings. And we follow them on Twitter, but they've also got a website, and that's the place for bookish events. So whether you're a reader or a writer, jump onto literarylistings.com and you can have a look and see at the festival calendars, the Writers' Fest, the bookshops, libraries, all those kind of things, and they are very helpful. There you go. That is my news. What have you got for us?
Well, no real news from my side, I think, because, of course, it is episode 66, and we've got a brand new format for this episode.
Yes.
So that was the news, but definitely the news will always be there, and that's always going to be a great opportunity for writers, and any events coming up, as you mentioned, any writing competitions or anything at all to do with the amazing world of reading and writing. But of course, episode 66, we have decided to shift things around a little bit and try out a brand new format for the show, and that means this is the debut episode that is featuring 2 very wonderful new little places to visit, and that is the Readers Cafe and the Writers Lounge. So the Readers Cafe is obviously, by its name, the perfect place to join us for, well, a beverage of your choice, whether it be a afternoon wine, whether it be an early morning coffee or tea or whatever it might be. But just to talk about all things books, the latest books that we've got on the website, perhaps some book release news, anything for all the avid readers out there that are looking to find their next title to whisk them away into the wonderful world of imagination, and of course some reviews as well. So, and the Writers Lounge is, as you'll hear, it could be a little bit of whatever you'd like it to be. For me, it's the underground bar, and where you don't know if it's day or night. Day or night, and the drinks are stiff, the ice is cold, but the atmosphere is warm, the air is smoky, and it's a chance to sit in the booth and let the jazz flow over and just have a chat about all things writing, very laid back and relaxed. So we've got all of that to come on the show, absolutely. And of course, this episode, we have got a fantastic guest too, who we will be talking about very shortly, but her name is Dime Sheppard, and she is a crime, action, romance, mystery writer, I guess. guess, is to put it much, from Queensland, and it was an amazing chat. But I'm going to let you know a bit about Dime very shortly. But Veronica, would you like to maybe take a break from the podcast and step into the Readers Cafe, and we'll have a quick cuppa?
Indeed. I will have a black chai latte with a little honey, please.
Okay, no problems. Well, it's Friday. I may have a Irish whiskey minus coffee and milk. Let's go. Okay, readers, welcome to the very first, visit to the Readers Cafe. Now, mentally I can see the decor that I enjoy, but whatever decor you enjoy or whatever style cafe you like, or whether it's on the coast and overlooking the water, snug within a mountain somewhere, or perhaps it's on the hustle and bustle of a busy street. Do you like your cafes, with a nice warm atmosphere with the winter rain outside, or do you like the aircon blowing and the beating sun coming through? Whatever floats your boat when it comes to cafes, welcome. And it's time to talk about a few books, being that we're in the book lovers little cafe. So we've got some brand new listings on the website, and I think there's some titles here that are going to appeal to everybody. The first book that I'd like to have a chat about, Veronica, have you heard of author Nina Kenwood?
Indeed I have, yes.
Wonderful. So Nina Kenwood is a young adult author, and Nina has just released a book called Unnecessary Drama. And so with regards to what that's all about, it reads as follows. From the author of the much-loved It Sounded Better in My Head comes a deliciously entertaining new rom-com set in a rundown student share house in Melbourne. 18-year-old Brooke is the kind of friend who not only remembers everyone's birthdays, but also organises the group present, pays for it, and politely chases others for their share. She's the helper, the doer, the guarder of drinks, the minder of bags, the maker of spreadsheets. She's the responsible one who always follows the rules, and she plans to keep it that way during her first year of university. Her new share house is rules light, but no unnecessary drama means no fights, tension, or romance between housemates. When one of her housemates turns out to be Jessie, her high school nemesis, Brooke is nervously confident she can handle it. But it turns out Jessie isn't so easy to ignore. Channeling the screwball comedy of New Girl with an enemies to lovers twist, Unnecessary Drama is a joyful story about leaving home, dealing with the unexpected complications of life, and somehow finding exactly what you need. And that is Unnecessary Drama by author Nina Kenwood. And you can find that under our young adult genre on the Australian Book Lovers, I was going to say podcast, on the website.
Well, you can find it on the podcast because you're listening to it now, but yes.
Yes, on the website. Yes, I remember the chaotic days, first year or two of my university.
Yes.
Oh, yes, that's for the R-rated, and that episode will have to be a Snapchat too, as to burn after listening. But yes, that's super fun.
I always shared houses with nurses, and while we worked hard, we certainly knew how to party. So yeah, we'll just put that one quietly in the background.
I suspect. And was when it came to movies back then, I suppose, was it out? I think it was early 80s. Were you always a lover of Young Doctors in Love?
Absolutely not, because we got to see them at work. No, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that was a very crazy. I remember Wednesday, the running joke in that movie was someone had switched the urine with samples with the apple juice. But yes, but anyway, there we go. That's the kind of movie.
We did used to do some tricks on some of the young long-term patients that we had in some of the wards, just to keep their spirits up. That was what we told them anyway.
Is that code for maybe spirits in their UV light?
No alcohol, but yeah, some health has lots of balls of funny coloured things that can change the colour of various fluids to be aware. Yeah, anyway.
There we go. Okay, I'm going to have a sip of my Irish coffee minus coffee and milk.
Just check it before you look at it. Yes, all right. No unnecessary drama sounds like a hoot, so yeah.
Yeah, it does, definitely.
Thanks for Nina.
And the next title I'd like to talk about is actually a biography, and it's called So Far, So Good. And that is by Aaron Farso, who I understand is somewhat of a TV and I think is maybe a movie celebrity here in Australia. I couldn't tell you, but I know he's very popular. So Far, So Good by Aaron Farso and Michelle Scott Tucker. And reads as follows. On his long path to success, from aspiring professional football to actor, director and producer, so yeah, way more than just an actor, but definitely. For every opportunity Aaron Farso's had, there were setbacks and heartache. He was 6 when his father and grandfather both died. His fiercely proud mother and even fiercer grandmother dug deep to raise Aaron and his brothers. Belief in himself as a warrior, literally and metaphorically, made him into a fighter, for better and for worse. A month into Aaron's second marriage, and just as his acting career was flourishing, his new wife took her own life. In the dark years that followed, Aaron eventually found strength and meaning in his family and in his beloved Torres Strait community. In So Far, So Good, he talks frankly about love, pain, making mistakes, and finding happiness again, as well as the impacts of racism and the challenges of remote communities. So that is So Far, So Good by Aaron Farso and Michelle Scott Tucker. And that is under our biography and sounds like a very intense journey to be taken.
Yeah, absolutely. And just, I am always amazed at people's, courage and generosity in sharing, warts and all, the good, the bad, and all of those fantastic things that they've learned from in their lives. And, it makes you understand why people read biographies and memoirs, because they can just be so inspiring. But yeah, that sounds like a goodie.
It does sound like a goodie, and it's a topic. What you just mentioned then about the benefits of having somebody so the courage to tell their story is something perhaps Dime Sheppard and I might have a bit of a chat about in the interview very shortly. But again, getting ahead of myself. So the next, I'd like to introduce 3 new books now, all by the same author, and that author is Petronella McGovern. And Petronella is a writer of thrillers / mysteries / crime, perhaps even in the suspense category. So 3 very intriguing titles. I'll start with the first one, called The Good Teacher. A good teacher can change lives. Every evening, Alison watches her husband's new house, desperate to find some answers. Every morning, she puts on a brave face to teach kindergarten. She's a good teacher, everyone says so. This stalking is just a tiny crack in her usual self-control. A late enrolment into her class brings little Gracie. Alison takes the sick girl under her wing, smothering Gracie with the love she can't give her own son. When Gracie has a chance to go to America for treatment, Alison whips up the community into a frenzied fundraising drive. But as others start to question her judgment and the police arrive at her door, Alison wonders if she can trust herself. Has she crossed the line? So very cool, sort of weird description there. A bit of a smiling teacher that might be a stalker and maybe harbouring some secrets. So that is The Good Teacher by Petronella McGovern, and under our mystery and thriller genre. And jumping straight into another mystery by Petronella, this one is called 6 Minutes, and 6 Minutes reads as follows. How can a child disappear from under the care of 4 playgroup mums? One Thursday morning, Lexi Parker dashes to the shop for biscuits, leaving Bella in the safe care of the other mums in the playgroup. 6 minutes later, Bella is gone. Police and media descend on the tiny village of Merrigang on the edges of Canberra. Locals unite to search the dense bushland. But as the investigation continues, relationships start to fracture. Online hate messages target Lexi, and the community is engulfed by fear. What happened in those 6 minutes? And where is Bella? So, if that doesn't get you wanting to jump in and find the answer, I don't know what will. So that's 6 Minutes by Petronella McGovern under our mystery. And the third title, and I believe this is her latest release, is called The Liars. And The Liars reads as follows. A wife burning with resentment, a husband hiding in the past, their teenage daughter crusading for the truth. Who can we trust? The close-knit community of Kinton Bay is shocked when 15-year-old Sienna Britton makes a grisly discovery near a cave in the national park. Sienna believes it's a skull from the town's violent colonial past and posts a video which hits the news headlines. But her parents, Mary and Rollo, think the skull is related to their teenage parties in the Killing Cave back in the 1990s, and a schoolmate who went missing then. The Liars is a heart-stopping cocktail of family secrets, sinister unsolved disappearances, and a community at war with itself. And that is The Liars, and I love that description. What can those bones be? Are they going to bring up some uncomfortable truths that should have been revealed, or is it just a prompt to bring out some guilt? I don't know. Or is there some sinister memories that need to be brought into the light? But that is The Liars, and I love a sort of story about a little town, and maybe on the a little coastal town, and every day is great until one little thing unravels, and then suddenly the town can be on edge. And such a great format for as far as storytelling. Anyway, for me, I love it. 3 fabulous mysteries set in Australia. Yes. The Teacher, 6 Minutes, and The Liars. Ooh. I have to go up a TBR pile. Yeah, so there we go. To all of our readers that are enjoying a little bit of cafe time with us right now, if any of those books perked your ears or made you spit your coffee out with excitement, then please jump onto the website and have a look, and you can find them under our biography, our young adult, our Indigenous, and our mystery and thriller genres. So, absolutely awesome titles to be having the pleasure of adding to the website. And as part of the cafe, we've also got a remote special guest, because it is post it's not post COVID, but shall we say the new normal. And of course, sometimes we have guests that are digital as well, and we have a digital guest coming to us right now to grace us with another wonderful review, and that is none other than Dime Sheppard. So Naomi, I can't see you, and I don't think you can hear me right now, as in this very moment, but with the power of technology, welcome to the cafe. And while you are giving us a review, I might go and order you a drink.
Hi, this is Dime Sheppard. I love writing in all its many forms: blogs, book reviews, and even novels. Women's fiction, suspense, and domestic noir hold a special fascination for me, and I'm also partial to a touch of the supernatural. Today I would like to review books 1 and 2 in the Black Birch series by Kate Allan. These young adult stories centre around 17-year-old Josh Taylor, who must come to terms with his unwanted new powers and the disturbing secrets from his past. Black Birch 1, The Beginning. Josh Taylor has lost his beloved parents and the life he had in the city. Fostered out to his mum's best friend, he must learn to adjust to life in the quaint little tourist town of Black Birch, whose twee facade hides a sinister reality. Struggling to recover both emotionally and physically, Josh must deal with both his overwhelming grief and his newly awakened supernatural powers. Trying to make sense of his new life, he turns to his adult mentors and high school friends, especially fellow outlier Callie. But in a town as mysterious as Black Birch, who can he really trust? I found myself drawn into the intriguing world of Black Birch, where everyday reality and the supernatural coexist. Josh's quest to make sense of his strange new dreams and unwanted new powers took many unexpected turns and kept me guessing. In Black Birch 2, The Dark Half, we learn more about the history of the characters and the way magic works for each of them. As Josh and Callie struggle to corral their own magical powers and their dark doppelgangers, they must fight against those with similar powers and agendas of their own. In this shifting world, the distinction between dream and reality is often blurred, and their visions for the future are compromised. I enjoyed getting to know the characters more deeply in this second novel and how their individual powers work for them. Kate Allan has a great young adult voice, and there is always plenty of action. The story is constantly evolving, and just as some of the mysteries of Black Birch are revealed, even more questions arise. The story ends with a dramatic twist, and I look forward to seeing where it goes in Book 3 of the Black Birch series.
So as always, Naomi's reviews are thoughtful and just give you a great idea of what the book presents and what it holds together for readers. So thanks, Naomi. You are becoming quite a little regular with us, which is fantastic. And I'm interested now for you, Darren, to tell us about your upcoming interview.
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, we have the wonderful, spectacularly special and full of energy and will guaranteed put a smile on your face, none other than Dime Sheppard, who is a crime, action, thriller, mystery, suspense, romance writer.
And no relation to Holden Sheppard, who I interviewed last week.
No, different sides of the country.
Different sides of the country.
Yeah, definitely. But I mention all those genres because her latest release, which is a crime writer, is, as I discovered, really is a mashup of all those genres. But it was super fun to chat. Lots of laughter. Obviously had the privilege of chatting about a lot of subjects, including her ridiculous dog, which is, I'll let her reveal that to you. But yeah, no, it was fantastic and a really cool idea because, of course, this is a crime writer, is the story of a crime writer, hence its title. But a couple of characters actually make that transition from the page to the real world. And so that is kind of the premise for the story, but Dime does take it in a few different directions. So it was great chatting with her, some great revelations with regards to what she's learned about all her travels. As you will hear, she has lived in quite a few different places and experienced a whole range of cultures. And of course, some great revelations about where the story came from and how Crime Writer came to be, which is something I'd love to have a chat with you a bit further, Veronica, once we've had the fun of listening to the interview. So because It was a very interesting subject, and I think a subject that touches all of us, even whether you're a writer or an artist of some description, or really it touches all of us at some point, regardless of the situation. So, but nonetheless, I'm not going to say without further ado, I'm going to say, with the power of Queensland sunshine and the smiles of 1,000 hippies and the magic of literature that can bring, I guess, characters to life, here is none other than Dime Sheppard. Fantastic listeners, our special guest today is a writer, obviously, and a former barrister, a film student, waitress, Spanish teacher, vineyard labourer, bilingual interpreter and marketing manager. She also has a degree in English literature and has also spent 7 years working for an NGO, mostly in South America. And I suspect that, as we'll probably come to find out, that is perhaps just the tip of the iceberg. So her brand new book, or most recent book, Crime Writer, was shortlisted for the 2022 Daphne du Maurier Award for Excellence in Mystery and Suspense, the 2022 Davitt Award for Best Crime Books by Australian Women, and the People's Choice Queensland Book of the Year Award. So this book, Crime Writer, has so many good reviews, including one I just want to quickly read to you from 3D Radio. Dime Sheppard's story is equal parts detective thriller and meta giggle fest. Impeccably literary, beautifully written and self-aware. I've never read anything like it. This is an extraordinarily good and challenging debut. So our special guest has a self-confessed ridiculous dog, loves action movies, and she admits doesn't mind potato chips for breakfast. So with all of those that information in mind, Dime Sheppard, welcome to the Australian Book Lovers Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I feel like I have so much to live up to now.
Well, I guess the first question is, for a good Monday morning breakfast, what flavour potato chip?
Oh, plain.
Plain?
Just plain, yeah. Sea salt is fine. I personally prefer, I like salt and vinegar or cheesy ones, but I had to give up dairy a couple of years ago, so now it's just plain. And I just revel in the flavour of the potato.
All roads lead to the potato.
Yeah.
With my European blood, yes, I do love a bit of mashed potato. Definitely love a bit of vodka too. So as my wife will attest. But Dime, your biography, well, it almost reads like an action movie. And so I'm wondering, before we jump into all the groovy things about crime and writing and your book and your upcoming book, I wonder if you could maybe share with our listeners a little bit about the powerhouse that is Dime Sheppard, and maybe what drew you to the art of writing, and maybe amongst that you might also be able to let us know what makes your dog so ridiculous.
Well, I have to kind of correct you before I begin, because in the very beginning, you said former barrister, but actually I'm a former barista.
Oh, barista. And so the borders between us has been established.
Yeah, I wish I was a former barrister. Man, what a life I would have led then, but no.
Maybe it's an Adelaide thing, or maybe it's just me. I always say, yeah, barrister, even when it comes to coffee.
Really?
There we go.
Oh, that's so funny. Oh my gosh. Well, I have a sister who's a lawyer, and she's really, she's wonderfully successful and high powered. And so I definitely feel like I don't fall into that category at all. I've lived a much more eclectic life, as you can tell from my bio that you just read out. It just happens that I've ended up in a lot of different places, some of them remote and uncomfortable and difficult, but it has definitely given me a lot of, material content, as they say. Everything is content. And it just turns out that I've just happened to live a life that created plenty for me. So it's good. It's really good.
So you say eclectic life. Was it like a bit of a footloose and fancy free? And I understand you lived for a while in South America as well as other places?
Yes, I did. So, well, I kind of did the normal thing when I finished high school, and I got a degree from the University of Queensland, because I'm Brisbane based, and that was in English. So, well, it was an English science parallel degree. So I also have a degree in science, but
nice.
That's by the by. But I really fell in love with English and English literature, and so I think that's probably, I always loved writing stories, but that's really where I began to truly love like the craft of the story, like the art of writing a good story. But after that, that's when I kind of, I just kind of couldn't really settle down to anything, and I think that's probably because I just had this desire for something in my heart that was more than the ordinary, and I just ended up sort of following that desire, and it led me, to different countries. It led me to, oh gosh, here we go. We'll list them all. No, I did it, I did an exchange program in Scotland as part of my degree, and that was really good. And then I ended up I did end up in South America because I had this burning desire to learn Spanish. And so I was there for several years, and I did end up working for an NGO. And that was like, there was a whole lot of sort of, random things that were associated with that job, like we were building roads in the desert, and I was cooking for homeless people and translating,
Wow.
As you said, translating for like medical teams that came and that kind of thing. So, that was really kind of crazy, and it just really, I don't know, I just still didn't really find the thing that I was looking for. So, I just kind of, that wandering just kind of continued, much to the chagrin of my parents, who had this one wonderful sister who kind of settled down and worked hard and has been really successful, and the other who just kind of ended up looking like a bit of a hippie, even though that wasn't my intention. And it wasn't my intention to end up with not sort of leading a normal life and not kind of hitting all of the landmarks that regular people hit, like the normal beats of a story of a person's life, where they meet someone and get married and buy a house and have kids and all of that stuff. I just never did all of that stuff. And it wasn't because I was deliberately trying to rebel or, trying to be outside of the norm. I think I would have loved to be normal. It's just that I don't know, something in my heart just wouldn't let me. I was searching somehow. So yeah, and here I am.
And here you are, and look, to be honest, Dime, it warms my heart a little to hear you say, talk about your lifestyle in that way, in the sense of, I myself was, very hard to pin myself down, and probably to the point still is. I've settled down a tiny little bit, and it's kind of freaking me out, But when I say freaking me out, because I was exactly the same, to the point where I feel like an imposter no matter where I go, because I can't, the idea of sticking to one thing for 10, 15, 20 years is it's not biologically, psychologically, or physically, spiritually, emotionally, whatever you want to call it, possible. It's just not in me. And And I, but that's not to say that there's not fascinating journeys for people that do have, find themselves being drawn to that. So yes, I always feel like I'm on the outside looking in, and maybe that's something to do with being a writer, I suppose, because every situation you get in is an excellent adventure. It's fuel for future stories, and then it's time to move on to the next adventure, really, isn't it? That's I feel like life is. So, and when it comes to your dog, what makes him or her ridiculous? I'm dying to know.
Oh, she is a Cairn Terrier. And which I don't know if from the Wizard of Oz, Toto, that breed. So little pointy ears, brown, and she's oh gosh, I'm going to be one of those people who like effuses about their dog, but she's just really. She's both grumpy and scared. So she's terrified of things, but she's also really furious all of the time. So she makes me laugh because she gets angry about these random things, and she's got this kind of angry little face with a little kind of square beard and little kind of beady eyes that look really furious. But at the same time, she kind of runs away from everything and goes and shivers in a corner. So, she kind of portrays, she's like, and we've had small dogs before that were, kind of like those light, they feel like when you pick them up, they feel like a bird. They're all just little brittle bones and, but this dog is like built like a tank, and she's small, but she weighs like, 10 kilograms or something. So if you want to kind of do anything with her, you've literally got to shove her out of the way. So she's, it's like being in a war with a tiny general who's also terrified of everything, so she's ridiculous, basically.
Oh dear. And and what was her name?
Kenzie.
Kenzie. Has Kenzie made it into any of your writing?
She is actually going to be in my third book.
Yay.
Yeah. You caught me.
No, that's hey. I'm not going to say overweight because he's not, but very big boned and fluffy, heavy, big cat Bobby. He made it into my dystopian thriller. So
nice.
which is fun. Well,
there's so much fodder for just inspiration with their characters and the little kind of things they do. We've actually got my normal job. We've got a cat in our office, and she, oh my gosh, she's also this terrifying creature. But you can see that she wants to she's like desperate to like be close to you and engage with you, but she also doesn't want you to come close. So like she kind of creeps up behind your computer and stares at you. But if you try to pat her, she'll bite you. And sometimes she'll just randomly bite you on the ankle first thing in the morning. And so, and that just makes for such an interesting, imagine if that was a person, like somebody who just, like they're just desperate to be kind of close to you.
Oh, they're very cunning.
They lash out, at random moments because they're really, oh my gosh. I don't know. I'm fascinated by that stuff.
Oh yeah, it's a long playbook because one day that kitty at the office is going to come up and start rubbing his or her head on you and purr, and you're going to go home and say, right, we need a cat. And ta-da, the plan works. So they know how to manipulate us as humans. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now you've definitely sounds like you've probably had more than one adventure so far in this journey in life. And you said you've always loved writing, and obviously have a degree in English, which is just amazing. But I'm wondering, your first novel, Crime Writer, is out. I think that came out last year. Mm-hmm. But I'm wondering what inspired you when it comes to writing to step into that literary world of crime. And was there any real life incidents that made you consider getting into that genre?
No, and to be honest, I hadn't read a lot of crime novels or stories before I began this.
Oh, interesting.
I was much more interested, I love kind of stories that involve the police, but not like specifically crime story. I know that kind of doesn't make any sense, but I just really love action movies. So, like if there's a police, Bruce Willis, and he's a police officer and he has to save the day, like that kind of thing, I'm right into. Like anything that involves car crashes and helicopters and, and basically the police officer kind of saving the day, that's the kind of thing that I love. And so this particular story, it's more kind of in that vein as opposed to, it's called Crime Writer, but really she's not she's not solving a crime so much as fixing a problem. And the problem is that, you know, her own characters have come alive and are now trying to kill her. So it's not so much a, you know, figure out what happened to the dead body, although my second story is a bit like that. But yeah, it's more, you know, fix the problem that's getting out of control and do it with the least number of dead people as possible. That's
basically setting up literary fires and then having fun of putting them out.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and the story came to me very kind of dramatically. You know, like I don't know. I guess I had always intended to write a story. I just felt, you know, like I was just one of those people that felt like I had a story in me, and eventually it would come out, and you know, and I'd write it, and that would be, you know, like I don't know. I just always had that feeling, and so when it arrived, it wasn't a huge surprise, but it did arrive very dramatically, and I was. I just happened to be, I was working for a charity at the time, and I was driving home one night, and I'd had like this horrible night at work. It was like a meal, we cooked a meal for the homeless, and I was kind of the coordinator of that. And it had just been one of those nights when kind of things got a bit messy. And I think I might have even had to like call an ambulance or something, or someone was shouting, or, you know, and I was just feeling really emotional on the drive home, and I'm pretty sure I'd cried most of the way, and I pulled up to these to a set of lights and kind of was like looking up at the sky going, you know, why is it so hard? And this whole story, the whole story just like downloaded in my mind in within the time of the traffic lights. So, you know, like all of the characters, the whole plot, you know, at least until the third act, the whole first scene with like a whole bunch of dialogue and you know, like all of the kind of concept, because it's sort of set in a world where, you know, like where characters are quite real. So, you know, any kind of writer, they can see and hear their characters in real life. They can't kind of interact with them very much, but, you know, like it's normal for them to sort of exist for the writer. And so all of that just kind of came as a package into my brain. And I pretty much just sped home and scribbled it all into a notebook as quickly as I could, and, you know, kind of tried to capture everything that I'd just received, and then spent the next, you know, 6 or 7 months kind of writing it into a story. I mean, that was 7 years ago, so it took a while to get from that point to, you know, actually having a finished novel, which I think is probably a good thing. It means it's not undercooked. But yeah, that kind of first, that whole kind of the story and the idea and everything to do with it was very much I don't know, it was like a supernatural event almost that it just happened to me.
Wow, I'm intrigued that you know, think of it as possibly a supernatural event, because, you know, obviously the story is about characters emerging from the crime writer's book coming to life, and yet here you are, the story itself emerged from you. From a place maybe you're not too sure of, and bam, it's there. That must have been quite a unique set of traffic lights. I mean, do you remember the set of traffic lights? Has it become a little bit of a mecca for you?
Yeah.
If you get stuck?
Honestly, I wish I could go back there and get more story whenever I wanted, but it's never happened again. So
maybe that's a short story to write about a set of lights that gives a person their inspiration, but it has to be a red light. But every time they're driving, it's green, so they keep going around the block and start losing their mind. And
yeah, that would be amazing.
Well, you've definitely answered a bunch of questions about, you know, where the book came from and you know, a little bit of the inspiration. But I'm curious about the approach to the genre that you've taken, and that is with the characters coming, you know, or at least some characters having the ability to emerge from a book within the book and come to life for the, you know, and interact with the main protagonist, who is a crime writer herself. So was that exactly how you wanted it to be when that idea first struck, or was that kind of something that evolved as you were getting it down on paper and plotting it out?
Well, that whole idea definitely kind of came, you know, like that sort of was part of the package, you know, for want of a better word. Yeah. And to be honest, I wasn't that thrilled about it, because I personally feel like it's a bit of a concept that's been done to death, you know, like that whole idea of a writer kind of seeing and hearing their characters. Like there's, you know, like you can name, I feel like there's so many stories you can name, like Stranger Than Fiction, Ruby Sparks, you know, like all those kind of movies where like the writer is talking to their talking to their characters, or their characters are alive or whatever. Like I just, like in terms of kind of coming up with something that's really going to hook people in because it's brand new and it's fresh, I was like, well, couldn't I have come up with something that was a bit, better than this and hasn't already been done to death? But I think the way, the thing that I kind of sort of held on to throughout the writing of it was the fact that even though it's not necessarily a new idea, the way that it plays out is quite fresh. And the idea of her kind of being in danger from her own, serial killer, that's quite fresh. And of course she has to sort of rely on the help of her good guys, which are the police, some NYPD police detectives that she may or may not have a crush on. And so, like all of that kind of part of it is quite different. So, and people seem to like it.
Well, it sounds like it covers quite a few different things, from action to mystery to suspense to thrill to romance to humour even.
Yeah.
But I am intrigued because the main character, I understand, is Evie Howland, and Evie is a successful crime writer facing the challenges and mysteries of her characters coming to life. You are a crime writer writing about a crime writer. Of course I have to ask, are there any elements of Dime in the character of Evie Howland?
Oh, of course.
Or is that a little mystery?
No. Yes, of course there's me in there. I think any writer who claims that there's nothing of themselves in their characters is a fat liar.
Yeah, I mean, all the action, bravery, and gold class romance in my characters definitely comes from me. Of course. Yeah, I wish.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Evie's quite, in the beginning she's shy and she's closed in, and she she doesn't interact with the outside world. So I mean, there's elements of that I can really relate to. There's sometimes in my life when I would probably like to do that and just shut myself off from all of the scary things and never come outside. But on the other hand, as she kind of, goes through that character arc and develops and gets really brave and kind of turns into, a much more resilient and kind of fully formed version of herself, she is really brave, in all of that kind of danger, and she's really smart in a lot of those situations. And so even though I haven't personally been held at gunpoint and I haven't personally kind of saved the world, I would like to think that were I in that same situation, that I would be able to react in a similar way to her. So yeah. And of course the humor, like all of the kind of that humor, I mean, that's mine. I can't pretend that I'm not hilarious. No, I am.
can't keep the lid on that pot. The recipe is coming out.
Apparently not. Yeah. No, there's lots of me in there for sure.
Excellent. Well, in the description of crime writer, you say that real love may be the best way of writing her own story, and that's in relation to to Evie. And in the book itself, I just want to read to our listeners a quote, and that is, the fact is, sometimes the things in people's hearts are best left unsaid. Sometimes they're a bit grim and unsightly, or if they're not, they might get stuck on the way out. So that's a really interesting couple of sentences there, and so I'm wondering what your feelings are with regards to the relationship between love, whatever that love might be, and writing, because it seems to be drawing an interesting linkage there between the two.
Yeah, well, I definitely think, I mean, that's taken from the very beginning of the book.
Correct,
when
yeah.
Evie, Evie's kind of in the mire of her past, like she's gone through some stuff, she's lost people and she's kind of all, a bit damaged inside. And so, she's kind of talking about that. And it is definitely like that love, that B, the B story, the love plot that kind of causes her to like open up and kind of, sort of expand her heart and become vulnerable. And I do think that love plays a huge part of that, like kind of teaching you to have a bigger heart and to open up your heart. And that's such a key element of becoming who you're meant to be and becoming, the best version of yourself and all of that. So yeah, I think I do think that sometimes when you you're in a place of when you have been hurt or damaged, sometimes it's best not to share necessarily, you know, like in terms of a creative way. I think, you know, like a lot of people, a lot of creatives, they have that like purging, you know, they feel like it's good to purge, and it is a way of like processing, but it isn't necessarily good for the person who's hearing it, you know, like for the person who's reading it, or, you know, like it doesn't necessarily do good in the world. I think that's something for your therapist. You know, like go and get healing, you know, like go and get and go and process and work on it, and, you know, put money and effort and skill into getting that, all of that healing in your heart that you need, so that when you're creating something, you can create something that's uplifting and that touches the world and makes it better. Gosh, I went really deep then, didn't I?
No, I love that answer.
I don't think I even knew that was my opinion until it started pouring out of my face. So I'm really sorry if I've offended people. It's, you know, like, I'm not going to say don't create if you're feeling broken and hurt inside. For goodness sake, you know, do whatever you need to do. But for me personally, I just I have a really strong desire to, you know, if I'm going to create something, then to create something that's going to provoke somebody or touch them in a way that's going to make their life better.
Yeah, beautiful.
And you probably wouldn't know that from this book, because it is just pure entertainment, and it really is just flat out superficial entertainment. There's almost nothing deep in there at all.
But sometimes that is exactly what the soul needs. A good
sometimes
entertainment is entertainment.
Yeah, sometimes, like you say, like there's that one quote that like sticks in your eyes and ends up being kind of something that really impacts you, and, you know, you didn't even realize that it was just the right time and the right place for that one word to like hit you. So yeah.
And I agree with the purging. I personally think that you know, art is an opportunity to purge, because I think, but in the sense, I think it's very important, if you are going to purge, you know, any sort of emotional feelings, extreme emotional feelings, whatever they may be, or you've been through a difficult situation and you want to purge and release some of that negative or uncomfortable energy, if it becomes, it's a process of metamorphosis, I think is important. You know, for example, if it comes into, it can even be a haunting, but if it comes into a beautiful song, or a haunting but beautiful poem, or something that's true, elevates and brings together, I guess, helps build the roadmap of, you know, the human condition. And even if it's just, you know, it'd be great to take something negative and turn it into an awesome positive. And I love so much art that does that, but also like art when it's purging in the sense of letting, you know, being able to read something, listen to something, watch something that reminds you that you're not alone in experiencing certain things. So it's so complicated being human, isn't it? It's just, I want to be a Tonka toy human.
Yeah, no, you're so right. That's absolutely true. There's so much value in, I rescind my previous opinion.
No, because I think I agree with what you said as well, in the sense of, you know, to purge and just sort of let out without having processed it. That's not I don't know if that's purging as more as I suppose purging and vomiting are the same, but I like to think purging is a little bit more by choice.
But you're so right. There's so much value in knowing that you're not alone, and knowing that you know, because that feeling of being alienated, that there's something wrong with you and that you're the only one, like that's so deceitful, and that's so harmful, you know. So I really like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I think we've got to be catching up at Nimbin soon and start banging a drum and sing that song that we are all together. No. So I'm gonna. Well, I know there's a lot of fun in the story, but I am curious, because in Crime Writer there are, you know, there's some goodies and there's baddies. So you've got some baddies, you've got some dark characters that come to life in the book. Yep. And Veronica and I, we recently had a discussion about, you know, that grey zone that exists, or we think exists, between good and evil, you know, between right and wrong. Yeah. When you are writing, do you write with the classic, and I say that in inverted, you know, in quotation marks, with a classic villain in mind, or even when you read or whatever, do you like you know, those complex baddies that might have elements that readers, you know, they could grow to understand and maybe even like a little?
easily the complex baddie.
Yay!
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, classic baddies don't exist. Like that's not a.
I don't know. I reckon one at the time of recording is doing a press conference, but I'm not going to say. I won't say anything beyond that.
No, I definitely love the grey areas, and I think as well as I grow older and get to see, like you get to just kind of see and experience more of humans, other humans, and the human condition, and experience more of your own, like your own heart and your own kind of brain, and trying to figure out what's going on there. Like there's so much kind of just zones of not being able to understand and not being able to figure it out. And I think that's true for everybody. And I would love to write like the baddie in Crime Writer. I think he probably, I'd like to think he's quite complex. I think he's, like he is a classic baddie in the sense that there's absolutely no denying that he's a bad guy. Like you couldn't ever say that this guy could be redeemed in any way. Like he's but I think all of his kind of inner machinations and the stuff that's going on in his brain, I think I personally find that quite complex and interesting. But I definitely, it's definitely my desire as I continue to write characters and introduce new characters in my in the kind of sequential books that are coming to make them interesting and complex and preferably a bit grey here and there. So yeah, love that.
I've been fascinated with like non-fiction books, reading about famous killers and criminals and scammers, and scammers are kind of a bit of a passion project at the moment for me. I love reading about the big scammers. It's just fascinating. And but more into the looking behind the curtain and reading those people that are are researching or investigating or discussing the psychological aspects of those personalities, those criminal personalities, and the motivations that gave them that gave rise to their antics, whether they're famous or infamous. And by reading a lot of that gave me a little bit more confidence, writing villain. Even if I write the villain as your classic baddie, there's always room then, I think, because that psychology's in the background. But I'm just curious, was there any you just mentioned you sort of like fascinated a little bit about those internal workings of a criminal mind. Was there any research that you were doing prior to Crime Story, or is that something that you're sort of embarking a bit more on now as the series progresses?
I hadn't done any research beforehand, but when the story arrived, and this kind of bad guy arrived along with it, I wanted to understand him because he was there, and so I wanted to figure out what was going on inside him. So I did do a lot of research into like psychopaths and different personality disorders that kind of result in psychopathy and all of that kind of thing. So yeah, I definitely got really interested in all of that stuff, and it is terrifying because I think the more that you look into that, the more you kind of see some of those elements in your own personality and your own behavior, and you're like, and everybody would, because we're all human, and everybody has like even tiny elements of that kind of behavior, because it's just an extreme. It's basically an extreme of normal human behavior, so but both fascinating and horrifying.
but that is a really cool observation, because that's, I think, when anybody brings in complexities for a quote unquote baddie, it really does open the opportunity for the goodie to also slide a little bit towards the baddie, because I think there's a lot of classic crime novels and detective novels, movies as well, where the cop or the detective or someone who is essentially the goodie at the start of the story is after the baddie, but then the requirements involved in capturing the baddie. You often see the goodie sort of slide into that grey zone of well, I'll just break this little rule, and I'll just break this little rule, and I can justify it like this. And if you let that happen, and also bring that baddie who you reveal more reasons why the person's bad, it's really interesting contrast then, because you've got two people that are essentially the same, just coming from it's cool.
So. And they can both see you know, like they both believe that their actions are right. You know, like
Yes,
given their
yeah.
circumstances, they both believe that they're behaving in the best way possible, or sometimes in the only possible option for them is this. You know, so yeah, I think that's fascinating.
Destinies colliding and both coming to be the same. But crime, you know, itself is such a hugely popular genre. You know, you talked about how you love the action movies and the crime and the cop stuff, and you're writing crime. Your protagonist is a crime writer. You know, and it is such a popular genre when it comes to novels, when it comes to TV shows, documentaries, and movies.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a little bit about you know, it's the psychopathy. You know, we can see a little bit of ourselves in it. And I'm just wondering, do you think, does that follow on that crime itself, that as a genre is so popular? Because deep down, we all have a secret criminal part to us that needs to be satisfied.
Ooh, maybe. I don't know. If I was answering for myself, I would say more that my own pleasure from it comes from a need for order or a need for
Interesting.
For understanding, you know.
Okay.
So, you know, like to have things solved, you know, like to have something that's, you know, a complete sort of confusion of problems or, you know, evidence or, you know, whatever, to have it kind of brought into order, you know, like a place of order. And if like the you know, kind of the personality difficulties of the characters are also brought into order along the way, then that's even more satisfying. You know, if the crime is solved and the main detective grows as a person, then, you know, all the better.
Yeah, that is interesting. It's kind of like tidying up all the pieces and restoring, you know, restoring some sort of balance as opposed to letting the chaos run free.
Yeah. I don't know if that's what anyone else takes away from it, but I think, well, I have a very strong desire for things to be clean.
I tend to flip around a little bit. Like if it's a serial killer, then I'm fascinated and I want to see how they get captured. But you know, sometimes if it's a good old-fashioned bank heist or you know, something that doesn't technically hurt anyone, gets lots of money, sometimes it's like, that could be, you know, if I knew I could get away with it, would I do it? And a part of me says, no, of course not. But then I see, you know, read about and just see the corruption and lack of integrity sometimes that's all around and think, well, why wouldn't you? So, but no, I definitely I agree with you there when it comes to most crimes. There is something satisfying about, you know, having a case solved. Having, like you said, order restored and you know, showing that we are a member of functioning society as opposed to, you know, chaos. But you know, I'm guessing you probably, speaking of crime and you know, solving crimes, I'm guessing you probably put a little bit of thought into criminal schemes or what makes a criminal. So I'm curious, from an imaginative or literary sense, have you come up with at least some good ideas around what might be the perfect crime?
Crime.
Just tap on the microphone twice if you can't tell me on air.
No, I'm sorry to say that I don't even like letting my brain go in that direction. Mainly because I have a really strong belief that I'd get caught. Like they would just like the poo would always hit the fan with me. Like there's no possible way that I would get away with it. And like I have to say as well, you know, kind of having lived in South America, and which is just such an incredible continent and full of like amazing nations and amazing people and, you know, all of that stuff. But there's definitely a different atmosphere there where, you know, deceit and corruption is much more commonplace, and all of the kind of things that we value in Australia, like transparency in government and regulation, you know, like we kind of get upset about regulation, but there's a lot of rules in Australia that keep a lot of people safe that they aren't grateful for, that don't exist in other countries, and that, you know, and people die as a result. So, you know, like I kind of feel like, that crime, any kind of leaning towards crime, it just makes for so much mess and ugliness and pain for people, you know, like, and so I'd, you know, like regardless of if it was something that I could get away with, I don't think there's no amount of money that would be worth a clean conscience for me. I would much rather just, live a peaceful life, with no caffeine and no stress
and a ridiculous doggy.
than commit the perfect crime. That probably sounds so lame, but that is the truth.
not at all. Watching a lot of crime, and you see the antics and the lifestyles of underworld organisations or known crime families and corrupt governments, and of course there are aspects of that lifestyle that I'd love. I'd love the ability to jump on planes at any time, either private or business, and travel around. I'd like all that sort of stuff. Would I do what's required to do it? No, not in a heartbeat. Do I want to be that? If I get the opportunity to have all that money but have to wake up with the personality of some of those people, I'll stick with not worrying about money at all. I think I've got to worry about it, but I just don't want to. I'm never going to have to worry about having too much, that's for sure.
Yeah, same probably.
And what are some of the it's interesting, someone who's lived in South America and you're under such a different level of government and different lifestyle. What sort of beautiful aspects of the culture and the people and the lifestyle were you able to bring back to Australia, or maybe that we could probably do with here in Australia?
So when I arrived in South America, I was in my 20s, and when you're in your 20s and you think that you know everything, and you think that all the things that you do, that your country does, is the right way of doing it. And so I had a big culture shock in store for me, which was wonderful for me. And I think the main kind of thing that I discovered that we don't do better than other countries in Australia is just loving people. It sounds really strange, but Australians are, because we really value independence and we value, kind of surviving on your own, and, because we're like a pioneer nation, right? Like, so we really value not having to ask anybody for help, and also, we really love sarcasm. So being able to kind of cut somebody down. Like, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but if you kind of arrive to a new group of friends in Australia, the first thing they'll do is kind of make a semi-mean joke about you.
Oh, 100%.
And that's an Australian way of including somebody, like including a new person in a group, is that we'll make a mean joke about them. Like, how?
Well, it's the strangest thing. It's like a filter process, isn't it? Because if you don't stand tall and push through that, then it's kind of like you didn't. In the eyes of the process, whether it's good or bad, but in the eyes of the process, then if you didn't pass that test, then you're not a suitable candidate for that group of friends. It's just on one way I kind of understand it, and the other way it is a cruel, but then schoolyards are.
It's just a bit twisted, it's just kind of, and I living in another country where that's not okay, and kind of making any sort of joke about somebody, like, not to say that, because I was in Argentina, not to say that Argentines don't make jokes about other people, but they don't make mean jokes, they just, and because they're so, I could talk about this for ages, and I will try not to, but they're much more community minded. Like, most of the other nations in the world are much more community minded. Like, they see the world in terms of a community, as opposed to, kind of an independent, individualistic viewpoint. And that really bothered me. Like, if you're down the street with a group of people and you want to have a drink, you don't buy yourself a drink. You buy a huge bottle of drink and then you offer it to everybody, and I was just, that just used to really annoy me for some reason, because I was like, I don't want to buy a drink for everybody, I just want to go and get a drink, But I came to see that that's actually really beautiful, like that, the fact that you're always looking out for the person beside you, the fact that you're seeing the world in terms of, like a group mentality, like a community mentality, like what's going to be good for the community, how are we going to look after everybody, you know, what's a way to kind of make somebody feel included, as opposed to, as you say, you know, give them a trial by fire where they have to survive it in order to be worthy of the group, you know, like that kind of thing. Yeah, that was something that yeah. And you know, when I got back to Australia and I was sort of working with a bunch of Latino people, and they used to have this kind of common saying where they'd be like, oh yeah, because Australians are mean, you know, and it's
really?
not like they would never say that to an Australian ever, because that would be a mean thing to say, but it's just kind of common knowledge for Latino people who come and move to Australia that, oh, you just have to get over that because they're mean, you know, like and we are like in that kind of in that grid, you know, like we are, that's mean. We're mean to people. And I don't really want to be like that, you know, like I'd rather live a life that has a more true kind of love and acceptance of people. I'm not going to say that I'm getting there, but I'm trying, you know, like
every step forward. And I agree. And I think it's easy to forget that for people of other nations, when they come to Australia, a lot of times they are going to experience culture shock just like we would. And I'd rather that the culture shock be for good reasons, but I suspect there's quite a few things, you know, like anywhere, but we'd like to think we're you know, it's easy to be in our bubble and think, you know, the culture shock that other people experience will just be, oh, because we've got beautiful this and beautiful that. So no, actually, you know,
actually, Australians can be quite different.
We could be a little bit naughty, you know?
Yeah,
and we might celebrate it amongst ourselves, but but it is fascinating. And look, for the life of me, I can't remember where I read it, but I remember reading an article about, I guess, whether it was the differences in cultures or some aspects of, you know, those dividing things between, you know, the Australian culture and say those of European countries. And one of them was, in a general conversation, people from European backgrounds or in Europe or other countries, they touched each other on a far higher amount of times than say Australians would, because they're very affectionate and and we're very standoffish. If I went up and sort of put my hand on somebody while I was talking to them, it would feel quite uncomfortable unless you know, we were 10 beers in and decided we both like the same footy team. But do you know what I mean? It's whereas it's natural over there, it can be often very unnatural here. So there's little differences like that too. I think make us a little bit separate. But yeah, there you go. It's very interesting, but I like that. I like the idea of bringing across that need to maybe love each other a little bit more. Yeah, absolutely. And again, we can maybe write that song in Nimbin. That can be track number 2.
Yes.
As you can tell, I'm trying to find any excuse to head back up the Queensland way for a while. And writing a song and cruising around in my undies. That's a pretty good motivator. Now,
awesome.
on a bit of a brighter side, when it comes to writing, so I'm curious when it comes to your approach to that art of getting words down. I mean, do you have lucky charms? Do you have a special desk, or do you stick to strict schedules? And I was going to ask if you have notepads lying around, and of course, that the listeners can't see the backdrop that I saw earlier, but listeners, Dime's backdrop was a stunning array of, must be at least 50, 60 pages that have been ripped out of her book and put on the wall. So that I love that. It's one of the best backgrounds I've seen. But is that maybe a mirror of your writing style and scribbling notes everywhere?
What, you mean just a giant mess?
Well, that's what writing is, a big mess that we tidy up with a broom of red pen.
Yeah. I do have a day job, so
for now.
Yeah, for now, so I don't get to spend as much time writing as I would like. I have a dream in my heart of being able to write full time and being able to, because I do write better in the morning, like early morning, and I think that's true for a lot of writers. I don't know why. Maybe just, you know, because the brain's fresh or whatever.
Tank's full, electricity's buzzing.
Yeah, exactly. And so I tend to miss out on that, because by the time I get to the weekend, which is my, you know, sort of writing time, or the afternoon after work, my brain is it's not at its fully functioning best anymore. So yeah, I honestly, I'm just doing things by the skin of my teeth at the moment. But certainly the desire in my heart is to have a lovely schedule where I just, write for 5 hours in the morning and then, you know, research or edit in the afternoon. And, you know, oh gosh, it would be so amazing.
Oh, it would be, wouldn't it?
One day. one day.
One day, yes. Well, one day soon, I suspect. Well, because we're going to talk shortly about your new book that's coming out. But I guess what I wanted to do is hopefully touch on or find out a little bit about the publishing journey that you embarked on and how it brought you to Ruby Books, who I understand is the publisher of Crime Writer.
Well, the Ruby Books is me. Yep. So Crime Writer is self-published, and the reason for that is because I did kind of make a small foray into the traditional publishing world, but as part of that process, I actually became convinced that self-publishing is the future.
Oh, I agree with you, absolutely.
And I, when I kind of was getting it professionally edited and stuff, my editor said to me, why are you sure you don't want to have this traditionally published? I think you could get it published. And I was kind of like, no, I've decided to do this now. And there's definitely been days when I've thought, did I make the right choice? Because, there's a legitimacy that a traditional publisher brings you that you just don't get as a self-publisher. And there's very much still a stigma attached to self-published books in Australia, I believe. That's really hard to overcome. Having been shortlisted for all the awards that I've been shortlisted for this year, that has helped that, because it's sort of proof that here's this objective panel of judges that say, yes, Dime Sheppard can write a book. So that's really helpful. But ultimately, I don't know, I still feel like I made the right choice. I think because it's a mashup of kind of different genres, I think it would have been very difficult to market for a traditional publisher. They like genre books that fit neatly into a particular genre. And because this is, it's mystery suspense, there's also kind of a rom-com, like the first third of it's almost like a rom-com. And there's like the magical realism element in there as well. So And it's basically like the last half is just kind of full-fledged action adventure. So, like how do you market that? Where do you put that on a shelf, basically? So, so I think probably, in terms of like knowing how to market it, there's no one who can do that better than me. And I am actually a marketing manager. So it's, it hasn't been too hard to kind of figure that out. But, yeah,
so that's amazing, and so that just shows that your publishing journey has been, actually extraordinary when you think about it. Because you're right, there is, I suppose, still that somewhat of a stigma for self-publishing. But the irony is, there's a great equalizer at the end of the day that levels the playing field for everybody. And at the end of the day, that's money. As in, when I say money, I mean like sales of books.
Yeah.
And the self-publishing journey is a difficult one, only because you have to be a publisher as well. And if you don't do that, then you eliminate the opportunity to help level that playing field. But likewise, the publishing industry is fantastic, but they've had to adapt as well. And things are slowly equalising. But I love the idea that you've got that marketing background, which is like such a huge ingredient in promoting a book. So, I think it's it's a daunting thing to become your own publishing company, so to speak, which is essentially what you do.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. So can you tell me maybe where the name Ruby comes from, and what have you discovered on your publishing journey that you never anticipated when you before you embarked on the journey?
Oh, well, the word Ruby comes from, what was I doing? I was like having thoughts about what to call my company. And I remember reading somewhere or hearing somewhere that the word red is kind of like for revelation, it's like a color that kind of represents new understanding or new knowledge, or just like basically having your brain opened up to a new idea. And I really like that because it kind of, in terms of just in terms of like moving forward as a person and kind of growing as a person, that idea of being open to receiving new ideas and new information. That probably sounds really new agey and weird, but
not at all.
But yeah, I just kind of I became sort of convinced that I wanted the color red to be in there, and I tried a few different things, and Ruby was just sort of hit the best. So that's where the name came from. And in terms of kind of learning stuff along the journey, I think it's been really nice to I don't know about like the publishing journey itself has been really difficult, and I think it was always going to be. I don't think there's anybody who self-publishes a book who finds it to be a walk in the park.
Well, especially because self-publishing by its very nature, it's 2022. There's a lot of software, a lot of websites, a lot of internet-based and technologically based stuff to traverse.
Yeah.
And so, which is it's one thing to spend day and night sweating on a word processor or using word processing software, but then if you haven't familiarized yourself with all the other aspects, that's a big learning curve, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think probably, like my job has really helped me just to be like have kind of a growth mindset in the sense of being really nimble to, when I learn something about, oh, well, this demographic really likes my book, or, because originally, because of that rom-com element, I was originally sort of marketing it to romance readers. But it turns out that if you're a romance reader and you read this book, there's not enough romance in it to satisfy you. Whereas if you're a mystery suspense person who prefers, like detective books, and you read it, you actually like that little added element of the romance, people kind of like that. So, like all of those kind of little things that I learned about the book and about the way the book is received along the way, just being nimble enough to kind of change those, like change the website, change where it's getting, where I'm sending it, that kind of thing. That's been really, and not kind of worry about making a mistake, like if I change something now and that doesn't work, well, just change it back again, like that kind of, like in terms, and I'm not talking about the book itself, I'm talking about like where I'm marketing it or how I'm marketing it or what the website looks like, all of that kind of thing. That's been really good. I think, like in the past I've been, and I'm growing out of this, but in the past I've been quite a perfectionist. And so feeling like if you get something wrong, that you've got it wrong and you can't go back, or that it's a failure or whatever, rather than kind of seeing, the things that way, rather to kind of think, oh, well, that didn't work, so let's try something else, like, and that's been really, like, for me as a person, that's been really enjoyable to realize that I can just do that and I don't have to worry about what people think, and it's my company and I'll do whatever I want, So.
Exactly, and things happen organically. I think that's the big thing to discover. And you're right, I mean, it's a if you think that something's not working and you want to, pivot and bring a change in or add an element, it's a beautiful thing not to have to go through 5 different people, and wait for 3 weeks of correspondence to get something back going. Can you clarify your request? Well, come on.
Exactly.
And look, calling it Ruby Books, if anything, if you're a jewel lover, it's an excuse to hunt down lots of rubies. So when you do your, book tours and stuff, the dazzling ruby will stick in everyone's mind.
That would be nice. Oh, so funny.
Then it sounds like your work has only just begun, because, of course, the big news is that the sequel to Crime Writer, which is called, I understand, Two Timer, is coming out real soon. And I think I saw a date of September the 6th.
It's so close.
Yeah, definitely, only around the corner. Now, I've got to ask, I mean, I assume it was, but I wanted to know, how much fun was it to have the opportunity to revisit that unique world that you created, and how excited are you about all those lovers of the first book being able to dive back into your new adventure?
Oh, it's so nice. That, I think, I mean, obviously, yes, I loved all the characters. I didn't want to let them go. I was excited to write a second book. I also realized, like writing the first book, all of the kind of threads of the story that were initiated in the first book, they weren't in any way, kind of fully fixed in the first book. So there did really need to be a second book, and it was really fun to write it. And it has been really nice. I think that's got to be the nicest part of being a writer, isn't it? Having people write amazing reviews and saying they can't wait for the next one. Like that, that's so good. And so much of being a writer is just kind of sitting at a desk and being isolated from other human beings. But when you actually kind of get to go out and meet your readers and realize, oh yeah, this human being right here likes what I wrote and wants to read more, like, oh, I can go back and do it again. It's gonna be okay. Yeah, it's really It's really good. It was hard though, because the second book didn't arrive like a package like the first one did.
You mentioned
you
couldn't get back to that set of lights, could you?
No, I wish. Oh, that would have been so good. But yeah. So it took a bit more effort, but it was fun. It's fun because, well, you know what it's like. You're spending time with people who don't exist, but you really like them and you want to see what they do. So yeah, it's good.
It is. It's a whole different element, isn't it? Being able to, if you go back into a story or create a story with characters that you've already developed. It's it's a completely different style of writing.
Yeah.
And what about when it comes to celebrations? Have you already had a celebration party, or is it waiting for the official release?
No celebration party for this one. To be honest, I wasn't really planning to do a lot of marketing around this one, and I'll tell you why.
Oh, because that was my next question, yeah.
Because I'm just gonna let this one grow organically, because it ends on a cliffhanger, and I'm a little bit worried about people, if a lot of people read the second one and then bug me about the cliffhanger. I don't want any pressure writing the third one. It's all for my own state of mind. I'm really concerned about my mental health writing book 3. Because I don't want to feel like I don't need the pressure. I just need some quiet, and so I'm just gonna let book 2 rumble along and get to work on book 3 and hopefully produce something really good. So yeah.
Oh well, that is an interesting approach, and I mean, coming from a marketing background, I'm guessing you've probably determined that there may be a little bit of merit there too, because then when book 3's done, you can sort of triple the marketing, can't you?
Yeah, that's right. Pretty much. Yeah. I'll just go out with double the whammies for book 3.
We've already given away a little bit of a secret of the upcoming two-timer. It's got a cliffhanger ending.
Yeah. And I feel really bad about it, but it had to be. It just had to be. So sorry. I personally don't love cliffhangers. So yeah,
that's what they're all about.
Apologetic.
No, that's what they're all about. It's what growing up was. You finish the chapter or the last chapter and realise it's a cliffhanger, and you're like, oh my god, or whether it's Doctor Who or Famous Five, or if it's like stay tuned for next episode, your jaw's on the floor. Oh no, what's going to happen? It's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Well, you've made me feel better, so thank you.
Well, without giving away any more secrets, are you already back on the keyboard working on something new, or?
Yeah, so book 3, I'm hoping to have that out next year. I'm in the midst of writing that at the moment. So that's just in its first draft phase, but really enjoying it.
And are you planning to, moving forward through the rest of this year, do you have any, have you allocated any time to yourself? Like, have you got a week off or anything where you're going to do just a purely writing retreat, or? Well,
yes, that definitely. That's definitely on the cards this year. Because, as I said before, it's really hard to have to kind of write something quality when your brain's in 3 places. So, yeah, I do need to have a little retreat or something. And I definitely want to get this book completed by the end of this year in terms of, ready for the editor. So, yeah, that is in the cards for sure.
Mm. Yeah, well, see, I'm definitely not a architect or a carpenter or basically good with that, any sort of mechanical or start building stuff. But I say that because I'm actually trying to build a writing retreat out in the bush down here. So I'm just trying to come up with a concept. Well, not come up with a concept, but come up with some sort of simple building style of. Now, I somewhat jest about going NIMBY and all that, but so this is going to sound funny, but not a teepee, but just little self-contained units or a little spot where you can just put a laptop and charger and all solar powered, right?
That's amazing.
All you got is kangaroos and wombats to keep you company, and it's in what we call a dark sky national park. So I want to have perspex roofs so you can pull the curtains back and see the stars at night. So that is in the works. It's slowly getting there. Also got a big old bus to renovate. That's going to be a little bit of a fun thing out there as well.
Wow.
But yeah, so who knows? Maybe in a year or so, you might be.
Sign me up.
You can finally come down to Adelaide.
Yes. Oh, finally, it can be the reason that I get there in the end. That'd be great.
the terrain's a little bit different to the local area around Brisbane, that's for sure. But it's a beautiful thing. Obviously, it's beautiful up there. It's beautiful everywhere in Australia. It's beautiful. I just love the contrast. But I know Brisbane's stunning. I love the botanical gardens where we got through the city. I think you got a big walk there, haven't you? What's the walk called?
Oh, Mount Cootha?
Maybe, yeah.
No, I don't know.
No, the actual.
I don't go outside, Darren. I stay inside and write things like a hermit.
Well, I've got many funny and good memories of Brisbane, so yeah, you live in a good place. But I'm curious. Now, you mentioned you're a bit of a film student, and reading about what you've written and a little, the idea of the characters coming out, and just the fun and adventure of crime writers. I was just wondering, there's a 80s movie that it reminded me of, or maybe at least think of, that I really love to this day, and I think it still really holds up today for anyone who hasn't seen it. But I've got to ask, do you have a soft spot for Romancing the Stone?
Oh my gosh, yes.
How good is it?
Yes. And I think, honestly, because I saw it many years ago, and it really, well, I mean, I've watched it multiple times, but that's the genre. That is the genre of this book, like it's basically action adventure. You're on a kind of quest, and it's the falling in love part of it as well. So there's, yeah, I do love it. I mean, I think it does hold up almost in today's day and age. Because a little bit, I mean, it's a bit cheesy.
Yeah, but it never tried to not be cheesy, did it?
Yeah, I guess that's true. Oh, yeah.
I actually watched it only a couple of weeks ago.
Nice.
When it comes to working, I often have old 80s movies playing in the background on a different monitor. I don't know why. It's just something I've done since I've done it. So you look over and go, oh, Romance the Stone, cool. But yeah, some great moments with that. But yeah, that's what the whole thinking about this crime and romance, it got me thinking about. So yeah.
yeah, no, it's good.
And what about when it comes to future writing? Now, are these books set in Australia?
No, they're set in the USA. Well, the first book is set in New York City, and then the second book is set partially in New York City and partially in a bunch of other places.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, it's weird.
Is Australia going to come into it at any point?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Woo-hoo.
I didn't intend to write a book set in New York City, and specifically because I had never been there when I first started writing it. But like I said, the whole idea just came, and I tried to kind of change it and set it somewhere else that was actually familiar to me, but I couldn't. So in the end, I went to New York City and stayed there for 2 weeks and walked around for 8 hours a day and just did my research. And so that's how.
Wow, how was that? What were your first impressions?
Oh, it was so good. I kind of fell in love a bit and didn't want to leave. I cried on the last day.
Oh.
Yeah, no, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. So yeah, so that's how that happened. But definitely, I would like to at least have part of it set in Australia in the future. And so far in book 3, that's how it's worked out. So yeah, we'll see.
Wonderful. And this mashup of crime, adventure, mystery, thriller, and romance, do you think that's going to be the Dime signature moving forward in your literary collection and repertoire, or is there any particular type of genre that you feel like you might want to dip your toe in as well?
Oh, I don't know. I hadn't really thought about it. I don't mind reading books that are quite epic, like the kind of like Lord of the Rings, where there's fairies and fantasy elements. I don't mind that, and I don't mind reading romance, but I'm not really interested in writing it. I'm much more interested in a story that is being rushed along by the imperative nature of the events, that are kind of, and that whole kind of problem solving element where there's somebody's life that needs to be saved or that kind of thing. That's the stuff that really kind of stirs my blood, where you can fix things that are wrong. So I'm sure that speaks so much to my character. But but that's, when I'm writing, that's essentially what comes out, and I don't necessarily see that changing anytime in the future, but it might. Who knows?
Well, yeah, that's it. Who knows what the future brings? But
yeah.
And with regards to the future, now you're in Brisbane. You said you've got you've got your new book coming out. You're already working on a third book, but I'm just wondering, if moving forward, if something came sweeping into your life and wanted to turn you into real life Joan Wilder, who was of course the crime writer in Romancing the Stone, who was whisked away to a South American adventure. Would it take a lot to get you to embark on a real life adventure now, or are you still ready to go at the drop of a hat if life decides to take you on a new little experience?
I think I'm probably ready to go at the drop of a hat.
Excellent.
I've been working at home for, because I just became one of those people who work from home thanks to, this situation that we've all just lived. And I'm ready to not do that anymore. So if anyone wants to send me a plane ticket, I'll take it. I'll go. I'm ready.
Well, you never know. And the world is a beautiful place, but so is Australia. So you got to maybe hit the road and start looking at all the different towns and trying to pick which one is the criminal or which one is the future psychopath. Is it the person making my sandwich? Is it who's that looking at me through the window in that one town?
Yeah,
one street town. Yeah,
I love it. Oh my gosh, yeah, people watching is the best.
Oh, well, that's what we do as writers, don't we?
Yeah.
I think even if we want to admit it or not, for most of us, or whether we're aware of it or not.
Yeah.
Life is just I think as writers, we've got like smudged nose and hands from looking at the glass between us and the real world. I think at most times.
It's true. Yeah.
Hence why I just can't commit to anything for long term, because it's like, but we're in a museum called Earth.
Yeah.
I want to see what's in that room over there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, you're spot on. That's so true.
But Dime Sheppard, it has been amazing talking to you. I could talk to you all day and night. For our listeners out there who I know are going to be super excited about grabbing a copy of Crime Writer, and of course then by the time they get through that, the sequel, Two Timer, should be out, which is September the 6th. Where can readers follow you, learn more about you, find out updates, and just dive into the works and the fun that is Dime Sheppard?
Well, you can definitely head to my website, which is www.dimesheppard.com, and that's Dime with an M and not an N, like the cat food. Or just Google my name, crime writer Dime Sheppard, you'll find the website. But the book is available. It's basically available everywhere online that you buy books. So, Amazon, Booktopia, Book Depository, DMX, Google Play, Apple iBooks, Kobo, all those places you can find it. And all those links are on my website as well. So yeah, it's easy to find.
Wonderful. And do you have a social media presence that you update, or?
I'm only on Instagram because I try to enjoy social media, and I find that I can't do that if I spread myself too thin. So I tend to post things on Instagram, and my handle is just @Dime Sheppard, so it's pretty easy to find.
Oh, there we go. Excellent. And the rest of 2022, any adventures that you've got planned, or any exciting changes that are coming through, or are you just going to be knuckling down and getting everything ready for the eager readers out there?
Pretty much going to be knuckling down. I have part of the third book is also set in Paris.
Wow.
So I do there are some vague plans afoot to get to Paris to do some research there, much like I did with New York City, because I didn't, I have been to Paris, but it was only for 18 hours. So I've seen many things, but it was just a glimpse. Yeah. Whereas I would love to kind of spend some time there and actually kind of get my feet on the ground and get a feel for what it's like to live there. So yeah, so that's kind of like a vague plan that I have, but I don't know, international travel at the moment feels, even though it is happening, it feels a little bit out of reach. So I'm just moving forward slowly with that and just taking care.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation, because I'd love to get back overseas, and a couple of things sort of stopped us going recently. But even then, even if nothing had stopped us, then the idea of doing it is a little bit scary for me at the moment because, the society's kind of weird enough as it is. And then, with COVID, we saw sort of just chaos happen where, realised that there's no adults in charge at the end of the day. So a lot of the rules were just like, well, we can't work anything out, so just shut it all down. And now it's, you got to deal with all sorts of different governments who can't probably function properly, and businesses trying to get back up, and airlines with minimal stuff. It's weird. I thought it was going to be a big celebration, and the companies would have been ready, and you'd be getting champagne for coming on their planes, and they'd have a dress code again, so you had to look good, and everything was like. But
wouldn't that be nice?
You lined out to the streets and just waiting to get your laptop checked. Oh, lordy.
Oh, God.
That's why I say we've got Australia, we've got roads, and of course van life is such a popular thing now. So I'd love to jump into a van and head around Australia again, but not just yet. So but Dime, it has been amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today and for sharing all that awesome information and motivations that make everything that you do so special with all of our listeners. And I wish you nothing but success and amazing responses to the release of the new book, and of course then the amazing responses to the third book, which I have no doubt you're going to market like an absolute superstar. But thank you so much for being part of the Australian Book Clubbing podcast.
Thank you so much. It's been just an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Darren.
No problems. Take care, and say goodbye also, or hello and goodbye to Mrs. Ridiculous for me.
I will.
All the best, Dime. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dime Sheppard, for a brilliant and a very wide-ranging interview. You and she covered a whole plethora of themes. She was a wanderer of the world. You talked about inspiration download, which, yes, I'd like to talk about as well. Purging negative emotions. Why crime? I like her idea of even if you could get away with it, would you do it? That was your question, wasn't it? That's interesting. Nice. Culture shock. Yeah, supernatural events. All right. And I really want to know about the traffic lights. Where did she get her download from? Can we drive there, and will it happen to us?
Well, that's just it, isn't it? I mean, for Dime, it was the red light and an unexpected bolt of inspiration. But it wasn't a bolt of inspiration. Dime mentioned it was literally the whole story. So that would be beyond an inspiration. That's a download, isn't it?
It absolutely is, yeah. So where does inspiration come from for you, Darren? Like your stories, well, hopefully not real life, because some of them have got some horrific elements in it, and I mean that in a very nice way. Where does your inspiration come from? Yeah,
I gave a bit of thought, as you do after having a conversation like that, because I was, Dime interestingly said it was almost a supernatural moment, and that's I like that idea of using that word as a form of description, because at times I think it is almost supernatural, but I don't. Inspiration comes in a whole different range of colours. I think sometimes for me it comes with a whole chunk of information, like almost a whole story. Sometimes it's just a particular symbol or symbolic element to use in a story. Sometimes it might be a twist in the plot, all different things. But yeah, when it comes and where it comes from, that, I guess, that's the eternal mystery, isn't it? But I always wonder if you've got dreams, which is, some doctors would say, or some researchers would say, that's just the brain trying to process information, that's been inputted during the day, and assigning it to its relative filing cabinets, and in the process, formulating and testing out the relationship side of things. So we get these weird dreams. I wouldn't say dreams are a source. I don't think I've actually. I mean, I've had some pretty vivid dreams. I wouldn't ever say that dreams have given me the information I need for any of my stories. I wonder if there's a different place entirely that lies somewhere between unconscious, subconscious, the dream state, and our waking reality.
Well, I'm a bit of a believer in the muse, and whether that is your, the voice that is in your subconscious or somewhere there. I feel like for me, it's the voices of the characters, or it presents in my dreams or whatever that might be as the characters telling me the story. And there's a writing coach that you might have heard me speak about before, Tom Bird. He's an American gentleman. I think he's Californian originally. And I've done some of his writing classes, and he was my coach for a little while, which was fantastic, some of his retreats. And one of the things that he teaches is that you've got to get into the right mind frame before you can let the creative loose, I guess, is the thing. And then he's got some subliminal stuff that works for me, in that it's just a really quiet background sound effect, I guess, is the thing. But putting people in the right mind, letting those surface thoughts, stick them up somewhere out of the way that you'll get to them later. And as you mentioned, just maybe slide into not the semi-conscious, but maybe the less superficial, and let yourself sort of dip into that creativity. So yeah, that inspiration's there. But interestingly, for me, lots of different things, once I started to do that more regularly, lots of different things became the inspiration. So I would be walking and I'd see a magpie stop and, twitch its head and look at me. And then I feel like a story would unlock in my brain, and, the words would tumble out in half a plot, and or a bit of a character, or, part of an adventure or something like that. Or you'd see somebody drive past you, and the frown they had on their face, you'd think, oh, what's that? And then that would kind of unlock a whole lot of, story behind that character. So I think many writers, we've talked about this before, while lots of them are introverts, I think we're good people watchers, and we can see stories in people and places and things. So inspiration can come from everyday life. And, we just think of, we talked about, Aaron Farso, beg your pardon, and Michelle Scott Tucker just putting their memoir together, but even the ability to tell that story and to talk about ordinary things, and then thinking about mysteries and thrillers, and using what could have been just a fun teenage picnic, becomes, The Liars. I'm not sure if that was the right one. Petronella McGovern's book about, finding a skull. So, yeah, it comes from so many places. And that, I do wonder how people who plot out their book so carefully, sometimes I've heard them talk about they get the idea, but then they plot out the whole story. I don't know whether I could do that, whether that would be something I could work at. I'm more inclined to be a little bit more like What Happened to Dime, where it all kind of just downloaded in her head, and she went back and couldn't get her fingers to go fast enough to write it down.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, isn't it? I think there's at least two different sides to inspiration, because I think there is, you mentioned, seeing the magpie look at you a certain way, or someone driving past with a frown, who I automatically now assume has just come back from Woolworths and is just disgusted with the whole process. But that is, taking existing knowledge and experience that we have and using a certain element, something that captures our imagination for a brief moment, or captures our attention for a brief moment, and then it allows us to draw together all different fragments that we've got hidden in our brain and rearrange them in new ways. And I think that we can put those features together, but in a coherent and logical way. I think dreams put things together in a, obviously not so coherent and not so logical way.
Some of them are very odd, yes.
And David Lynch is, as a filmmaker, is someone who I think is one of the artists that almost comes close to capturing dreams. Hence, most of his movies make zero sense, but can be really unsettling or really profound just through the imagery alone. But I think then there's a waking state that is becoming like the dream master, I suppose, where we're taking something, we are drawing on the same information that dreams do, which is perhaps memories we haven't touched for a long time, information that we've stored that we've never had to use since, until that moment we decide we're going to use it, and we draw it all together. But I think then there's also that inspiration where a brand new concept is born. So I think, because it can strike where the concept will hit and go, bam, there's this story. from there, then I've sort of driving the ship in the sense of plotting, thinking, musing on it, slowly building it, formulating it, structuring it, molding it. But that original idea, that kernel, may not have been something that I was consciously seeking or trying to build. It could come, the old say, that cliche of you're having a shower and bam, something pops in your mind, or, times, circumstance, sitting at a set of lights and, thinking about one thing, and something overrides your current state of mind and your current thought process as though it's changing a channel. And I think that is a completely different thing again. And I can't say it's happened often, but I have had it, quite a few times. I could look back and remember points in time where it does feel like literally the channel has been changed. Because Dime was talking about how she was having a horrible day and, was quite upset and frustrated. She obviously, far from home in the sense of wasn't in Australia, pulls up a set of lights, and then suddenly a story about being a crime writer with characters coming off the page. It's a switch of channel, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
So the question is, who switches the channel?
You think there's an external control, or do you think it's
this is where that supernatural element comes in. Is it something deep within ourselves? Do we reach up and for example, does something deep within me reach up and change the channel? If something's been bubbling long enough and needs to get out, does it find an avenue? And if it can't escape through dreams, or if it can't escape through leaking, through projects that you're already on, if it's a whole, if it requires a whole new project of its own, a new attention, is there an element of myself that is coming out and going, changing that channel? And that keeps me up at night sometimes.
That does keep you up at night. Okay, well, I believe that it is ourselves, but I think ourselves is more than our physical, mental and emotional self. I feel like we carry our history within our DNA. I think there's a lot of ancestral kind of memory as well. And I also think that because we filter so much into our brain, because let's face it, if we took in everything that we saw and smelt and touched and heard and all of those things, then it would be incredibly hard as humans to process that. And I know that some people who are on the neurodivergent scale, up and down, they might struggle with one or two of those senses, or sometimes all of them. But for me, thinking about those creative things, then I reckon that's kind of, I could call it my higher self, the one that's keeping an eye on this evolution of me, that might just give me a little poke from time to time to go, hey, what about this story? Or hey, what about that? Or you know what? You could put those two things together and look what you'd get. So yeah, I reckon it's us in some way, shape or form.
Or could we go down the rabbit hole even further and step into that psychedelically crazy, funky realm of archetypes of the collective unconscious? And obviously one of Jung's big theories, but could it be that if we put our mind in a particular state over time, so for example, if we meditate on, or try to seek all those inspirations from the world around us for particular stories and whatnot, if we collect enough information and go down a particular path in just the right way, does it then open up certain avenues for those archetypes to come forth from, like you said, ancestral memories and perhaps global consciousness? And so it's only under the right conditions that they can come up through and onto an individual level. And is that the archetypes or that river of collective symbolism and story and eternal memory, is that something that can come up and change the channel given the right circumstances, of which we might sometimes refer to as the muse or a supernatural event? Do we dip our toe in that ever-flowing river of ideas?
Well, yes. Or do we, in fact, say that I read way too many science fiction, fantasy, philosophy, and reflective, ethical books, and I should just let it happen and get back to editing?
It's funny you say just let it happen, because I was thinking this morning about the you know, is there a supernatural element to where all our ideas come from? And of course, you know, that's, you know, it's a huge philosophical question and may never have an answer. But I do, you know, I do enjoy a little bit of, you know, deep breathing and meditation with my cosmic space music blasting in my ears. And I find that, you know, when I do the particular breathing I enjoy is you know, getting to a point where you exhale all your breath and you just don't breathe. You just sit there and that's it. You just don't breathe. You've emptied your lungs, and the idea is to override your physical process. And the only way to do that is just let your mind go, and not go as in become a white paper. You are nothing. I like to just go with the cosmic music, but let my brain go in an abstract way from one memory to the next, knowing that every time I do it, I am rediscovering memories that I may not have brought to the surface since I was a kid. And, you know, and yet there they are. So for, you know, 40 years I haven't thought about them. And for all I know, they never existed or had been blown to the dust of time. And yet here they are sparkling to life when I'm sitting there holding my breath like a goose on the floor while Bobby's meowing for his breakfast. But they come to life. It's like this. It's like they get drawn from these electrical netherlands, and I'm wondering if that's where a lot of our story inspiration comes from too. Do we allow ourselves to reach into the electrical magic box that has, you know, memories that we may not have touched for a long time, and do we use them to make sense of the world around us in stories? Who knows?
Who knows?
So everybody, hold your breath. Well, no, you don't hold your breath. You let the breath out, and then. And don't panic when it happens. But you know what? I panic every time. Once you reach a certain point where your body goes, "Gotta breathe, man. You gotta breathe." So it's a good little challenge. But there we go.
Right. There you go. Look, one more just little thought, and I'm always interested in why readers read what they read. So why is it that some people, such as all those fabulous people who entered the competition to get, you know, both the Brink and A Remarkable Woman, but particularly the historical fiction readers, it just makes me think, why is it that they feel entertained or engaged in stories like that? And why do people like crime? Why do people like true crime? Why do people like fantasy? You know, again, is it part of their muse or subconscious that needs or wants or desires that kind of story?
Well, that was something else we covered a little bit as you just over time, because I was, you know, I always wondered, you know, for all the lovers of true crime out there, myself being one of them, and crime in general, is it because I just have an itch that needs tickling? Is there, am I, you know, subconsciously frustrated at having to stop tendencies that want to come out that would be considered criminal, and so I can satisfy that hunger through that sort of media or throughout the different media? I don't think so. I don't really want to be a criminal, but
no.
I don't. So is it a case of? I think it's fascinating to try. You know, when it comes to crime, for example, I'm just fascinated by characters, or what, you know, fictional or non-fictional. They're just the elements that make them up, because those characters, by their nature of being criminals, you know, especially horrific criminals, are made up of completely different parts than I am. And so
the complex baddies, as you and
I don't want to read about me.
Yeah.
I'm boring. I want to read about something that's not me.
I don't know. There you go. But I did. I must just say, your little pronunciation slip, barrister and barista, happened to a friend of mine. Her daughter described a friend's new partner. Oh, isn't it lovely that she's going out with a barista? But in fact, it was a barrister. So a little bit of a difference in jobs there and circumstance. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's I was a coffee barrister. I don't know. Yeah,
the old barista. See,
barista.
Melbourne coffee culture. We like our baristas. Let's, though, leave that and now switch a little bit from the writers to the author. And
from
talking
all those
about
deep
readers.
philosophical musings.
Yes. And let's slide into our new segment called the Writer's Lounge.
Yes.
And I'm just so lovely to have our first guest in the Writer's Lounge. We won't always have a guest because, you know, we might talk about some writing tips and different bits and pieces. But it was so lovely to catch up with Kate Allan, KM Allan, as is her pen name, because Kate was our very second interview more than 12 months ago, and it was lovely to talk to her about her latest publication. So get yourself ready for approaching the Writers' Lounge, and same as we did for the Readers' Cafe, think about your favourite spot that you'd like to, talk to somebody about writing, whether it be a bar, whether it be as I suggested, a nice warm conservatory on this first day of spring with a lovely chilled glass of wine, and sit down and have a listen.
But it is a crime episode, so I'm sticking with the seedy smoke-filled room. But yes, the Writers' Lounge is it's the laid-back lounge where we can indulge in a drink or three, and it's all about just spending a couple of minutes with yourself and myself, Veronica, and we hope always a special guest. But it's about kicking back, having a bit of a laugh, having a bit of a relax, and just unwinding after the stresses of what is a crazy world out there. And we can talk about a little bit about writing and a little bit about what would make a good story, and as we're about to discover, some cool things about what authors are up to, and maybe a few little fun insights. So
yes.
I am going to I'm going to slink my way down the back alley. I'm going to find that secret entrance. I'm going to quietly move down through the crushed, stained, smoke smelly red velvet doorways and hallways and enter my little writer's lounge, and I can sense you skipping across the sunny fields, heading towards the open sunny conservatory.
Maybe not skipping, I might just say strolling.
Strolling,
I feel like
yes.
Strolling would be good, yeah.
There we go.
All right, bring it on.
Let's go in. Okay, listeners, welcome to the brand new Writers' Lounge, a place where we can kick back, order a drink or seven in my case, and soak up some of the smoky atmosphere of perhaps, I like in my mind, a little underground bar somewhere nestled in the city, and where we have the opportunity to catch up with a writer and have a little bit of a chat about all things writing and some of the fun stuff that comes with being a writer. So welcome to our very first official lounge session. There is no dress code, however you are invited to join in the conversation.
Thank you, Darren. And I have to say that your idea of Writers' Lounge and mine is a little different. I was thinking more kind of conservatory in the afternoon, perhaps a little chill glass of champagne or something. But I have to be honest and say I've got a nice hot cup of tea with me because it's a kind of cool Melbourne morning. But it is the first day of spring. And I'm delighted that we have with us today KM Allan. So, Kate, welcome to our first Writers' Lounge.
Thank you for having me.
Now, for those of you that don't know, we had Kate on our second ever podcast, and Kate is KM Allan is her pen name, and she is an identical twin, but not the evil one. I love that about you, Kate. So she started her career penning beauty articles for our hairstyling website, and now powers herself with chocolate and green tea while she writes books and blogs about writing. Now, anybody can go along and have a look at kmallan.com and hear a lot more about Kate. And she is a master on the social media. And not only that, but she's got a fantastic series, a YA fantasy series up. So, Kate, tell us a little bit about what you've been up to in the last few months.
Well, in the last few months, I have been trying to get the third book in my series ready. Mm-hmm. I was hoping I'd sort of released the first two books back in 2020, just as the pandemic hit, which was, lots of fun.
It was fun for all of us, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, yes. So, I have no idea what it's like to put out a book when a pandemic is not happening. So released that. And then I was hoping to get the third one out sort of about 6 months after the second one. But, of course, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
I think
is it mostly because of creativity? I know I struggled a little bit with the creativity, or was there, I know you had kids that you were homeschooling and other bits and pieces as well, so a combination of all of those things?
Definitely all of those things. And of course here in Victoria we were in lockdown for quite a long time, and lots of different lockdowns and things like that, and so that just really, I guess, contributed to it all. But definitely I think the creativeness, I think not just for me but for a lot of people, just really goes out of you when you're dealing with so much outside stress.
Yeah.
And so it was just hard doing that. And then, like I said, the homeschooling and everything like that was tough as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But sorry.
Go on. I was just going to say, but the ritual is out there. So for those who don't know Kate's work, the Blackbird series begins with The Beginning. The second book is The Dark Half, and this third book, just recently released, is The Ritual, and it is fabulous, really action-packed, so many twists and turns. I loved it. And you've been getting some great reviews about The Ritual as well. Well received.
Yes, and I'm so glad about that, because like I said, I had some trouble getting this book together, and also just sort of getting the plot, I guess, straightened out. It took me a lot longer to do than I thought it would, which is again contributing to why it took 2 years to come out.
I'm going to have great sympathy with you there. Yep.
Yes,
know where you're at.
So it was hard just trying to even get it together, and so so I'm glad that people have responded so well to it and they like it, because I was really worried for a while there.
It's good. Darren, over to you. Sorry, I jumped in there.
No, that's okay. I'm just sitting back enjoying my drink in the writer's lounge. But no, I was just curious, Kate. When it came to the quote unquote end of the pandemic, or at least the end of the lockdowns, and when life returned to a little bit of normalcy, did you find creativity coming back with a vengeance? You know how, like, if you don't dream for a few nights and then you have like almost fever dreams when you have the opportunity to dream, or at least for me anyway. But did you find yourself mind racing a million miles an hour and you got 1,000 stories that want to be told, or has it been just a gradual process?
Probably more gradual for me. I'm not one of those writers who has a million ideas. Usually if I'm sort of writing one book, I'm focused just on that. I don't sort of get distracted by other stories or ideas. And I know there's lots of people that do, and my brain just does not work like that. I have to sort of work on what I'm working on.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely in the other camp. I've got to try and focus, because there's such a crazy world. So many things out there that trigger ideas for stories. Definitely. But now that book 3 is out, is there a book 4? I guess I'm curious.
Yes.
Ooh.
Definitely. We're all hanging for that one.
Yes. Hopefully I won't take 2 years with this one. I'm trying not to. But no, and the 4th one will be the final one. So I'm working on that now, and luckily I started writing that sort of back in 2017. So I've sort of got a big rough idea of what's going to happen, and so I'm sort of working on. I had probably about 70,000 words already down for that. So so now I just have to sort of sort that through and basically bring it up to the plot lines of the 3 books that are out now, because obviously things change as you're writing and editing and stuff like that. So
that is the annoying thing about sequels, isn't it? That the first book you put everything you like in it, and then the sequel you've got to go, oh, what did I say again? And you go back and find out all the bits and pieces. And
I've been working on this series for so long, and there's so many different versions in my head over the years that then trying to remember what's actually in it is also a thing as well. So
Kate, your experience of self-publishing, because now that you've self-published 3 books very successfully, what are the things that you wish you'd known, before you published the first one?
Just being a lot more organised with it all. I always felt like I was rushing to get something out to a deadline.
Right.
And it just seemed like no matter how many times you thought, oh no, I've got plenty of time to do these things just pop up. And so but just trying to get it all together, like the formatting of the book, and you're trying to get page numbers and all that sort of stuff on certain pages and working, and just getting all that done, and then making sure when you upload files that there's no errors, and just trying to be as organised as possible, and leaving yourself the time, I guess, to be able to sort of proofread in between and things like that. So you can sort of pick up those errors.
It's amazing how many times you read a single page, and then as soon as you put it up online, you go, oh, lordy wordy, look, there is a typo there in the second page. Yes.
Well, I was actually looking through my second book recently as I was working on something for the third, and I looked back through it to check something, and I saw a typo then. And I thought, wow, this typo has been here for 2 years, and no one else has told me. I must be the only one who's noticed it. So, so I had to fix that up as well. And
Well, I often wonder when it comes to, certain typos, particular typos, if I've missed it over and over and over again because I've preempted what I'm reading, or I'm telling myself I'm seeing something that's not there. But I'm also wondering how often readers pick up the errors, or whether they sort of read. Because that sometimes you see it pops up every now and then on the internet where a paragraph will be written with like half the words, each word having the letters rearranged, and yet you can still read it quite fluently. At least in your mind. I don't know about out loud. So I'm just wondering if that I'm hoping that works to our advantage as well, as far as typos that do make it through, that readers don't notice it either.
Well, I think they don't, because I had some beta readers reading sort of last minute for me as well, as I was getting everything prepared, and a couple of them very nicely came back to me before I released the book, and they'd sort of both had picked up the same typo, which is one I had missed, but then there were some typos I picked up that they had missed. So,
there you go.
So yeah. I think everyone just sort of sees different things.
Yeah, definitely. But when it comes to self-publishing, you talked about feeling rushed and all the different facets that come with it. But I think one of the big things I've discovered as well, and I think a lot of people discover, is there's also constant learning, isn't there? You've got to teach yourself some. You realise you need to do something, and of course it may be something you've never done before. Whether it's a particular software or marketing approach or whatever it might be. So you're obviously you're also a student at all times, trying to cram these lessons in so that you can execute what you want to do, which is it can be fun, but damn, it can be frustrating too sometimes.
Oh, definitely, yeah. And because even though this was my third one, it felt like almost the first one, because I had to try and remember everything I had to do.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Now, Kate, on your website it says visit your social media to discover the mysteries of the universe, or at least some very good writing tips. So we'll get to writing tips in a moment, but I do want to say that you have the most beautiful photos on your social media, and some you take when you're going for a walk and some around your garden and those kind of things. So is amateur photographer part of your skill set?
Definitely, yes. I love taking photos, and I always take photos no matter where I'm going or what I'm doing, and
Yeah. So does that inspire you in terms of the world, in descriptions of the world? Do you think your eye, being able to capture such great scenery, helps you write scenery, or setting in your books?
Yes, definitely, yeah. Because as you've read the books,
yes,
it's a creepy forest that sort of surrounds this town, and a lot of stuff happens in the forest. And so definitely trees. I don't know if I became obsessed with them before or after writing this book, but definitely I have a real like of trees now, and so taking photos of them, just the branches and the bark and all that sort of stuff, just is very inspiring, and definitely makes its way into the books.
Excellent. And yes, I must admit, after reading your first book, I had to go and look up and read a whole lot more about black birches, because it's not something that we have in Australia. It's native, obviously, to the Americas, but
North America.
Amazing trees. Yeah, and particularly suited to have a spooky, magical, realist story set in it. All right, Darren, if you haven't got any more questions for Kate, we're going to start I think we've got 5 questions each.
Yes, and I neglected to send you any, but I do have 2 here, so which is a surprise. But I just wanted to find out, Veronica, I know we chatted a little bit, discussing about this new Groovy Writers Lounge, about if you've seen anything. I was just curious, Veronica, if you've seen anything or has life thrown you any weird ideas for writing in the last week or two? Well, I know I've got one, but I want to hear.
I'd have to say, one of them is one of my chickens. Now I know this, people who know me know that I have chickens and I like my chickens. One of my little silkies, Chinese silkies, her hair is such a beautiful, like the shape of an afro, that I worry sometimes that she can't see, but she's stopped going back to the chicken coop at night a couple of nights a week. So I can't decide when we go and find her in the garden whether she can't see where she's going, whether she's decided, I'm too old to be bothered going back to there, because of course she stopped, laying some months ago, or whether there's something else going on. And as I hunted through the garden with a torch and found her the other night, I thought, there she was, just sitting really quietly and calmly on a stump, thinking, well, I'm old enough to do exactly what I want. And of course, immediately I'm putting a voice into her head, like in my Chickabella stories, and imagining that she's this slightly cranky, grandmotherly type who goes, yeah, I'll do what I want when I want. Don't try and put me in a cage. So yeah, there you go. That was my inspiration.
Now I've got an image of a Afro chicken sitting under the stars waiting for the mothership.
Well, there you go. So we all bring our own slant on it. But yeah, she's a gorgeous little Tiggy, and she's a beautiful sort of coffee and dark brown stripes with her lovely Chinese silky hairdo. So yeah, gorgeous.
Ah, there you go. And I still think you need to do that deck of cards of all your chicken characters.
Oh yeah, that would be pretty cute. Yes,
That would be cool.
What about you, Darren? What did you get inspired about?
Yeah, so obviously we're moving into the future, so there's no such thing as aerial-based TV in our house. It's all internet-based. So YouTube factors a lot, and when I do sit down and watch, and man, oh man, every single ad is a sports bet ad. I just can't believe it. To the it's just gobsmacking. And but then I started thinking, it would be cool to write a story where aliens that have sort of integrated society in a subtle or covert way, and they have unlimited funds, and they start doing constant ads that slowly programs humans to head towards peace and not war, and start to no longer follow local governments, and just slowly, but prepare us to be a part of a global syndicate, a global government system. So, and I thought, wonder what those ads would look like. Yeah. So, but I'll take anything over sports bet. The sports bet drives me crazy.
I suspect they might know your age and gender, because if Ian and I are watching telly or anything, we get funeral insurance ads and those.
Really?
There you go. All right,
oh,
Kate.
Wow.
Well, let's not talk about that. Kate, let me ask you your favourite magic system. Either what you've created or one that you've read.
I think I'm going to have to go with one I created, because I know the most about that.
Yes.
And of course, that's the best as well.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, in my story world, the magic sort of gives people these gifts, and they get the gift that's sort of based on, I guess, their own DNA and who they are, and sort of things like that. And it's all sort of different things, like the main character, Josh Taylor, his gift is strength, so he has strength.
Yes.
Sorry, that was very badly explained.
No, but he also has strength of character, and I think
yes,
that,
exactly.
And that builds up his confidence, doesn't it, across the series? I really like that.
Yes, it does. Yeah, and because I did try to do that, where I put whatever abilities they had sort of does sort of match their personalities a bit. Like Callie, one of the other characters who has the magic, her ability is illusions and sort of thing, and she can also she's psychic, so she has psychic visions and things like that. So that sort of played into it too, that she could then use magic to create illusions because she sees things as well. So.
Yeah, I like your magic system. It's subtle. It's the magical realism thing, which is basically everyday ordinary humans who just have this extra little something, so it feels so possible.
Yeah, that's what I love about it too, and that's why I chose to do it in sort of the modern world and things like that, because I like that as well, that little touch of magic for people who are just ordinary people going about their lives. So
wishful thinking. All right,
I
Darren,
want
your
magic
turn.
now. Oh, okay. I was just curious, if you were to have a milkshake named after one or more bad habits of one of your antagonists, what would that milkshake be called?
That's a tough one.
Or cocktail, if that makes it easier.
No, it doesn't.
Because they're teenagers, they drink a lot of milkshakes, don't they? Yeah.
Well, what flavour would it be to start?
Well, actually, in the latest book, they do actually have some milkshakes, and they just have sort of like a choc mint one, which I put in there because that's my favourite milkshake.
That's the perfect answer. Yeah, if it's your favourite, why not put those little bits in there? All right. So, if you met one of your main characters in real life, what would you say to them? Pick one of the characters and then tell me what you'd say to them.
What would I say? Jeez.
Who would you like to meet? Actually, that's probably the first thing, isn't it?
I would probably like to meet Callie, because she's sort of my favourite character. Because I like the fact that she has those like weird, vivid dreams. You know what I mean? So he doesn't like a good, weird, vivid dream. So
exactly.
So I'd probably ask about that.
What's your latest dream? Yeah, nice
What's
one.
the latest dream? What do you see? Yeah.
Ah, very good. Darren, have you got any more?
Oh, I have got one more, and well, assuming that we do have magic in the real world, and then that magic leads to the ability to have baby dragons appear on in our world. If you were to stumble across a baby dragon and need to take care of it, would you, Kate, feed it dog food or cat food?
Probably cat food, because that's all I have in the house.
Yes, your two little pussycats might be a bit sad if the dragon started taking over their
That's right.
dinner bowls.
And
Very
yet
cool.
another animal becomes addicted to Fancy Feast.
All right, when was the last time a book made you laugh out loud?
Definitely Sandy Barker.
Yes, yeah,
Yes, her romance series.
very
that she's
good.
written. Yeah, so I just read the fourth one recently, which came out not that long
Yeah.
ago. Yeah, definitely. She has a real knack for just sort of putting in, I guess the characters will say what everyone's thinking but wouldn't say out loud, you know what I mean?
We need a few of those people in our lives, don't we?
Definitely.
Yeah, very good. All right, Darren, are you done? Can I squeeze one more in?
Oh, absolutely you can. I'm just going to sit here and slurp the last of my drink.
Okay, I've still got a little tea left. So, Kate, I know that you give some fantastic writerly advice, and your website has got some brilliant checklists, and your blog, which comes out regularly as well, is lots of information on writing. What is the most, and I know that it's appreciated in the writing community, so I wondered, what was the most unusual writing advice you were given?
Yeah, we've got some really great questions here.
Well, you are our guinea pig, so...
Unusual writing advice.
Yeah. Or you can say the best if it's all been pretty good.
It has been, pretty good. Yeah, usually
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I don't think I've ever been given unusual writing advice. Usually it's
Okay.
just sort of
What's the best piece of advice you've been given then?
I think it's definitely go with what you want to go with. You know what I mean? Like, obviously it's good to take on advice of others, especially when you've been writing something for so long, you just sort of can't see the errors anymore.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you need people to sort of say to you, it's a bit slow here, or this part's confusing and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think it's also about sticking with your vision of what you wanted the story to be. Like,
Yeah.
you get so much advice sometimes, and it's sort of like you don't have to listen to it all. Definitely take it on board, and but change what you want to change, what you're comfortable changing, because in the end of the day, the story has to be what you wanted it to be. You started writing it for a reason,
Yeah.
and so always keep that reason in mind, and just basically just try and do the best version of the story you can.
I think that's good advice. Yeah.
Definitely. And I don't know if it has been, advice has been given to you by any readers, but I suspect if it hasn't, it will come soon. And that is, anyone who reads your book is probably going to suggest to you that you never ever stop writing.
Yes. Most definitely. Yeah. All right, Kate, where can people find you and your books online?
The books are pretty much anywhere that you can buy a book online, really. Amazon's obviously the one place that everyone seems to go to, so it's on there, but it's also like Barnes and Noble and Kobo and all those sorts of other places as well. But all the links are on obviously my blog, which is kmallan.com, and that's Allan with an A.
Yes.
Yes. So all the links are there, but you can get it pretty much anywhere, really.
Very good. And you are on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Goodreads.
Yes.
And if they go KM Allan, you will surely pop up there somewhere.
Yes, definitely.
All right, lovely. Any hints on what might be happening after the Blackbird series, just before we go?
I definitely want to get some sort of book together based on my blog posts. Like some
very
sort of
good,
writer's
yeah.
checklist or something like that. I
Like
love
a
the
non-fiction.
checklists. Yes, definitely a non-fiction one. I love doing the checklists
cool.
and everything, because they help keep me sort of organised and actually getting things written, because I know what I'm doing. And so, they've been a big hit on the blog. So I'll definitely at some point love to put that in some sort of book form, so that it can be out there for other people to use as well.
Excellent. It
Maybe
sounds like
even
a bonus.
Yeah, maybe even some like small videos of the blog stuff, but you could do it in like super creepy forests. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and he's not a horror writer at all, Kate.
Oh, Kate, you said you love
he
creepy
immediately goes to the
forests.
sci-fi horror. But no, that is good because she has got a creepy forest in her stories.
Hi, Kate here, and with all the little smoke and red light, and that'd be groovy. Thank you so much for being a part of the Writers' Lounge, Kate. It's been amazing. Thank you for being our very first guest in, like as I mentioned earlier, my secret underground bar, or Veronica's sunlit afternoon conservatory.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been fun.
Very good. All right, people, that is our first Writers' Lounge. Thank you for listening.
Excellent.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
So I hope everybody has enjoyed, well, a little bit of a, what did they say, change of scenery, and a little bit of a pivot and turn to the podcast, because it's a little bit of fun, and I wanted to have a special place just for readers and a special place just for writers, and of course both of those special places can be enjoyed by everybody. So, lucky I'm still sober after my visit to the Writers' Lounge. But I wanted to just say thank you, huge thank you to Dime Sheppard for being such a wonderful guest on episode 66. And a huge thank you to the wonderful Kate Allan for being our very first, well, guinea pig, but no, realistically, just an amazing, fun guest for our very first Writers' Lounge. So, and of course, a huge thank you to Dime Sheppard for another wonderful review. And for anybody out there who would like to join us digitally in the Readers Cafe, you are more than welcome to pop a review of it doesn't have to be now for the Readers Cafe, it doesn't have to necessarily be an Australian book, because it's about Australian book lovers. So if you are an Australian who loves books, then and you'd like to let the world know about a book you're reading at the moment, or one you've read recently that you think is fantastic, or that you think is absolutely horrible. It's an adult world, we can talk about anything, but of course everybody loves all the books. By all means, please, we'd love for you to be a part of that segment. And I hope by the end of next week, at the time of recording, that there will be a brand new little feature on the podcast page to make it nice and easy to just click and upload a file. So yes. Look out for that, and I hope to be announcing that on the news next week. But yes, thank you everybody. And well, with all these jam-packed new segments and fun, we're still going to keep our quotes, aren't we, Veronica? But we're going to strip it down to one, which means
we are
going to strip
really
it down to one.
Well. Yes, we are going to strip it down to one. And look,
quality, not quantity.
No, and it's not entirely connected to anything that we spoke about today, my quote, but it was one that I read on a blog by Emma Louise Gill, Emma being one of the Australian writers on Twitter, and she's quoting Lauren Bukes from Nature 2017. And the quote is this: "Science fiction allows us the distance to circumvent issue fatigue in our very troubled times. We can play out ideas and scenarios because we are creatures of parable and myth and allegory, TED Talks and ethical trolley problems. Fiction is how we grapple with ourselves. By imagining the unimaginable, it's possible to make reality more bearable."
That's cool.
Yeah, so it kind of is a little bit what we spoke about with Kate, and it's a little bit what Dime talked about, with the, the worlds and everything. But yeah, it was from originally talking about science fiction. But yeah, thank you, Emma Louise, for putting that in your blog, and thank you to Lauren. When
I was listening to as you spoke it then, it made me think it's almost like being able to hit pause from just the daily grind.
Yeah.
If there's consistent issues that have to be dealt with, or consistent themes, and then can hit the stars and think about some other stuff to worry about, like plasma engines and whatnot. But no, I like the idea of being able to issue fatigue as a form of combat against that. Yeah, that's a cool quote. Yes. Already starting off strong with the quality, not quantity.
What have you got for us?
Okay, I have a quote by Harlan Coben, and I wanted to base a little bit on the interview that I was lucky enough to be a part of with Dime. And the quote is as follows: "The muse is not an angelic voice that sits on your shoulder and sings sweetly. The muse is the most annoying whine. The muse isn't hard to find, just hard to like. She follows you everywhere, tapping you on the shoulder, demanding that you stop doing whatever else you might be doing and pay attention to her." So that's one theory on the muse. And
yes, indeed. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I think when you
Not
locked
always
on something-
comfortable. Yeah,
No.
not always pleasant. Yeah, very
But
good.
far more comfortable than ignoring and then looking back and realizing or wondering what could have been. So I think if the muse gets you and there's something you need to do, get it done.
Indeed, get it done.
Yes. So
Beautiful.
okay, taglines. Ooh.
Well, but before tagline, we have to say to people, if you want to respond to any of our stuff that we faff on about, any questions we ask or any things that you want a bit more information on, you can find us through the contact form, of course, on the website, which is australianbooklovers.com, or you can find us on Twitter at Australian Books or on Instagram at Australian Book Lovers. And please let us know if you are enjoying the new format. Maybe give us a couple of episodes till we bed that down a bit. But please feel free to leave us some stars on your favourite podcasting platform or make some comments.
And yeah, I like the fact that, please don't be too harsh on our segments this one. This is our very first trial of our cafe and lounge bar. And yes, I hope everyone enjoyed it. But it's going to be lots of fun moving forward. And yes, it could be a good opportunity to share a lot of laughter as we move away from the cold months into the spring and summer. So it's a good opportunity to let the hair down a little bit in the lounge bar.
I want to mention our author interview for next week.
Oh, yes. Who have we got?
Is, in fact, Miranda Luby. So Miranda is the author of the recently released Sadie Starr's Guide to Starting Over. Fantastic YA book and shortlisted for the Text Prize and is, in fact, out with Text Publishing. She lives down on the beautiful surf coast down in Victoria. So, yeah, had a lovely chat. Looking forward to sharing that with you and everybody else.
And that'll be, episode 67. Woohoo!
Yes!
No relation to the episode, no relation to the number 666. So,
Tagline.
Yes, tagline. But if you do want to spook yourself, pick up any item, any shopping item at all, and look at that barcode. But yes, tagline. I was thinking of. We were talking about the muse and where it might come from, and you mentioned, maybe we've got ancestral memories and deep within our genes and DNA and the archetypes of the collective unconscious. How about that we are the voices of a muse, quietly whispering from eternity, coming up, talking to, our wonderful authors and readers out there to get them to read more Aussie books.
Indeed. All right. I like it.
Okay. So this will be fun because that means we're coming from technically an eternal cosmic space journey.
Yeah.
Yay!
technically an eternal cosmic space. I
One
do
of my
like that.
favourite subjects.
All right. Are we ready?
I think so.
And remember to
Read
more
Aussie
books.
and stop shopping at Woolworths. Oh, I might have to edit that. No.
Big W have lots of great books. They sell lots of Australian books too.
Not Big W, Woolworths.
Oh, Woolworths.
No.
What's the
not for-
difference?
No, just because their prices are ridiculous.
Oh, right.
Yes,
Sorry.
sorry, what I meant was, and shop local.
Oh, shop local. Shop indie booksellers.
For real fresh food. And definitely shop anywhere you can for books. But
no, you
start
have to
with your
chop all
local
that bit
bookshop.
out. I don't know what I was thinking. There you go.
See, this is what happens when you just dive into that eternal cosmic space journey river. Sometimes truths come out in the weirdest way. No, thank you everybody for being a part of episode 66. Thank you everybody for being a part of the brand new segment. So I hope you enjoyed them, and I can't wait to see. To be a part of everybody at episode 67. I'm not going to see you, but I'm hoping you're going to hear me. Take care.
Bye for now.
Let's meet again. Where magic happens.
Australian Book Lovers acknowledges First Nations peoples and recognises their continuous connection to country, community and to culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging,
and honour the sharing of traditional stories passed down through generations. We're committed to a safe and inclusive welcome for authors and readers of all cultures and backgrounds, including people of LGBTQIA+ communities and their families.